comes back with the Widowmaker.
Joy on the ambush. And now the charge fighting their way back on in.
Welcome everybody to day 2 of the North American knockout rounds. That's right, we're going to be knocking a couple more teams out of the 2020 season of the Overwatch League thus far. Thank you for joining us. I'm your discount yoga teacher, joined by Mr. Clean himself. And we're going to be getting started with a couple of Overwatch League games, starting with the Toronto Defiant versus the Los Angeles Gladiators. Josh, how are you?
Oh, I'm so hyped, Bren. I look forward all season to playoff time. Elimination matches. They just bring the best out of the teams, the best storylines. I mean, later on in the day, we've got Decay going up against his former team, the Dallas Fuel. This match has got so many former teammates going up against each other as well. And the stakes are just so high because no team wants to go out before even reaching the double elimination portion of our 2020 playoffs.
Yeah, these matches, there's so much pressure really being placed on all of the teams involved because one mistake, one slip up, and you're out. That's it. Your 2020 season is over. As you can see, the matches that we've got ahead of us here today, the Toronto Defiant facing off against the Los Angeles Gladiators. That's going to be our first match of the day, brought to you by yours truly. Later on, of course, the Boston Uprising making their way into the second round, upsetting a lot of people's brackets. I think there's only 150 roughly perfect brackets left.
That's
with
insane
the bracket prediction
after
maker.
1 day.
Yep, after a single day. And of course, as you said, Josh, the Washington Justice versus the Fuel a little bit later on. We're not here for those games just yet. We're here for the Toronto Defiant versus the Los Angeles Gladiators. As you can see, though, it's not just those games that are going to be being played. Of course, on Saturday and Sunday, we've got even more matches as our higher seeded teams finally get going. And that's also when we get into the double elimination portion of the playoffs as well. Can be a little bit confusing, but I assure you, ultimately, it is going to be making for some fantastic games.
It definitely is. And that's essentially what the Defiant and the Gladiators are playing for today. They're playing to not get eliminated from our 2020 season and progress to that double elimination portion where they'll get selected by one of the top teams, have a really tough time of it, but they can continue throughout the playoffs. And you really want to make a deep run, especially if you're a team like the Gladiators who had so much expectation on their shoulders for this season and finished highly in previous years as well.
Yeah, and there's no better time to be making a deep run than right now because the meta has shifted. The heroes that are being played are just like none other that we've seen in quite some time. It is absolute madness. Look at this, not a single quote-unquote main tank over 20% play rate. It's Roadhog, it's D.Va, it's Zarya. That's what we've been seeing played by these teams. Now, it's left standing, you know, whether or not we will see this composition stay, because here's the thing, when a meta shifts like this, when a new patch comes in, it's in flux for quite some time, and it doesn't really settle until you get to the later weeks of a patch. So we may be seeing this as just early days. A team might find a countercomp to it. Gladiators, I think, are a team that might not even opt into this kind of style, but we'll have to see a little bit later on for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially because normally the way that metas are dictated is by the top teams and then it trickles down. All of these teams have been able to scrim, but we haven't seen the top teams play yet. It has been the beginning stages of the 2020 playoffs. Over in APAC as well, there were teams playing double sniper last night. The London Spitfire and the Chengdu Hunters played, so there was double sniper being played. Some Hog Sigma was getting played as well. Some Winston Zarya. So even though here in North America, you see that a lot of teams so far have just been playing Hog D.Va and Hog Zarya, don't let that fool you. The meta is not set in stone in any sense. We could see teams have massive variation from here on out. So your guess is as good as ours today. We're learning with you on the job because these teams, they could come out and just completely surprise us.
Which means even more potential for upsets here today. And as we take a look at the Toronto starting lineup, you can see that they seem to be opting into something that we have been seeing from the North American side of things. Agilities is in that main tank slot, which means probably going to be seeing one of his signature heroes way back in the day, maybe the Roadhog coming out. Of course, Logix and Zik are going to be playing alongside each other in that DPS slot as well. The Toronto Defiant, they would be the underdogs in this matchup that we're seeing here, Josh, but the meta could favor them.
Yeah, and that's the same kind of thing that you would have said for the Boston Uprising as well, right? They weren't expected to get through their match against the Houston Outlaws. Fusions made the swap over to Roadhog. Fusions only had a week to prep for Roadhog. Agilities, he's been playing it for years. It was one of his heroes that he was very happy to swap to in the 2018 season. You can see here that here's his Roadhog stats for all time. He's got a 48% hook accuracy all time as well. That's really good, by the way, when you consider that it's his average of all time played. And he wasn't playing it in like a hook kind of era. He was the DPS player, occasionally flexing on to play it. The times have shifted though, Brent. Roadhog is not played in the same way that it was in 2018. Roadhog is played in a way that it has never been played before. We have never seen a meta anything like this in the past, where you have two off tanks making space for each other. It's gonna test agilities, it's gonna test the whole team, and it's gonna be interesting to see if they can adapt if that composition gets broken by the Gladiators.
It is so fundamentally different compared to anything that we've seen in recent memory, at least. But as we take a look at the Gladiators starting lineup, they have decided to go for something a little bit more standard. In terms of the players that they're going to be fielding, you can see you've got OG and Space as the tank duo here, and Mirror and Kevster. Now, I feel like if they did want to be opting into some of these funky compositions, they may have flexed over one of their DPS players onto that main tank role. But this kind of screams to me that the Gladiators have a bit of a different read on the meta, and we may be seeing some unconventional by North American standards of composition, but maybe more conventional across if you look at the entirety of the history of the Overwatch League. I mean, it's up for debate, but we're going to find out soon enough.
Yeah, I think the Gladiators might have a slightly different take on this. Now, there is one player who is notably absent here, and that is Birdring, a guy that's been lighting up all of our kill feeds throughout the later portions of this season on the Widowmaker, on the Ashe. He has been taken ill recently. This is a genuine illness. That's what the Gladiators team was telling us, and unfortunately, they're just making these decisions on a day-to-day basis of whether or not Birdring was even going to be able to play this match. Unfortunately, it seems like he hasn't been able to be fielded today, so the Gladiators are fielding Kevster instead in his position, I believe. Now, we are making the assumption here that that was some kind of long-range hit scan. We don't have that inside information, but that's what Birdring has been playing for the majority of the end of this season, and here's how Kevster stacks up on the Ashe. You can see the time played. He just doesn't have that kind of experience because Birdring has been the one that's been playing it the entire season, but the numbers are still pretty decent. So if Kevster is coming in to replace a direct one-for-one replacement on the hit scan, then I think we can still expect pretty decent things. But you gotta say overall that this can't be the way the Gladiators wanted to start their 2020 season, with their key star player, the player that's been playing the best in the 2020 season towards the end, really heating up towards the playoffs. He is unfortunately ill and not able to play. And this, by the way, Bren, is single elimination. We haven't got to the double elim portion yet. So if the Gladiators lose today, they're out. It would be incredibly unfortunate, but that's the way it is.
I mean, it would just be absolutely crazy, wouldn't it, as we're heading into Ilios. And when I think of Ilios, I think of a big well section, which is prime for some hook action, you know? Some people really going flying into the pit of doom, cast the ring, Frodo, and he did on Woods, and then the story of Lord of the Rings was concluded. But the Toronto Defiant versus the Los Angeles Gladiators here today. I am very excited to see. OG seems like he's teasing us a little bit with the Roadhog. Normally, I wouldn't read into this too much because it's the pregame. There's 15 seconds left for the Gladiators to really tease us.
But the Gladiators are running Sombra Reaper. This was the meta in Korean contenders during this patch, and we've seen, I think it was the London Spitfire last night, run it a little bit on control maps. So we know that this is viable if they want to go for it, but instead it seems like they're opting for something which, as you say, a bit more conventional by normal standards, but we haven't seen it so far in North America. It's Sombra Tracer Dive.
And it looks like the Toronto Defiant are going to be going for a bit of fire action early on, and I don't hate it by any means. The Gladiators are going to find it a bit of a struggle, I think, to get decent value out of some of their tanks when they're running the Moira and the Lucio. Very mobile tanks means that those healers aren't really suited for what they are running comp-wise, but it does give you a lot of mobility and a lot of brawl power if you're sticking together and staying together. But early days yet, as you can see, the Toronto Defiant are the ones with a bit of control and positioning. Gladiator is going to start to contest this. Hook sent out from Agilities as he tries to get at least one early pick for the rest of his team, but they are going to flip the point over in their favor. They are in control of it for the time being, but the early picks going their way. Karib jumped on from afar, and the backline just being assaulted here as OG picks up 2 kills. And a great dive attempt here, very well coordinated from the Gladiators, means that they've got the opening pickoffs. However, the Resurrector's going to get traded out here, and as the barrage comes out early on from Zeke, and look at that! 2 kills off the bat. The hack into the pit as well, I don't know, maybe. Cruz might just survive on a sliver of health, but the point is going to go back over now to the Gladiators, and OG having a field day, not for much longer.
Yeah, the Gladiators had a massive opportunity there to be able to flip the point over and really solidify control, but the barrage coming out from Zik, a guy that we haven't really seen too much of throughout the season, and mostly on the Mei, to be honest, but coming out there with a great performance on the Pharah. Big Goose with a boop onto Agilities, and the Gladiators, they are trying to hold on to this point here. The Defiant looked like they would have a perfect opportunity to turn it around, and that EMP is going to solidify. It catches onto Mirror, and Big Goose takes him out, and the Gladiators are going to have to reset.
Gladiators, yeah, it would be wise to reset this, and it looks like that's the decision making they're going to be taking. But they've got a ton of ultimates now to work into this next fight. The issue is the Toronto Defiant could also, really, they have a lot of staying power. If you look at what they've got to work with, there's a nano boost. You slap that onto Agilities. I know some teams were prioritizing the Diva as the nano target, but we'll see. Gladiators need to get a good EMP off of Mirror. It's going to be one of their major win conditions coming into this fight.
Yeah, this is the big team fight ability. See what he's going for. Catches the Pharah and the Roadhog as well. And he individually is aiming to focus down the Pharah. Gets an individual hack onto Karib to make sure that Nanoboost can't come out to save anybody as well. And the Gladiators with a well-executed team fight win.
I mean, that's just beautiful, isn't it, as well? They knew exactly what they needed to do. You can see Mirror as well, his target prioritization. He knew that he didn't really have to deal with Zeke when he was hacked up in the backline. He could let his team deal with the rest of it, which is the signs of that, you know, they have a lot of trust in their general team play. And now the point, going to be back over to the Gladiators here, going for an aggressive approach here, straight away with the Coalescence, leading it in, trying to get an early pick off. Struggling a little bit, but the self-destruct going to be sent in now from space, and he does take out Karib. So a wonderful opening now for the Gladiators to work with.
And Karib is going to get rezzed here, and the Gladiators, they're using a sound barrier. They are committing very heavily here. But the coordination and the focus fire just wasn't there. That is the second time that Shaz has used his Coalescence to try and kill Zig, but Space isn't attacking the same target. They need to coordinate that between Space and Shaz to be able to take down a Pharah. They can't just do it with only one ultimate.
And the fact that they got no team fight win out of that sound barrier is not a good sign right now. They're taking so much spam damage from above, and you can see Agility's now using that whole hog. OG torn across the map, shredding them with the scrap gun. And now the point's still in contention with 2 picks. The Gladiators struggling to hold on to this one. With that loss of players, you can see them just spamming him from afar here. The Toronto Defiant going to be flipping this one over, and they look like they're in a very good position now to hold on. It's all going to come down to the Sombra play now as both teams have EMP.
Exactly. EMP versus EMP. We've seen many times throughout this season where the EMPs are cancelled by another EMP. Just that micro millisecond timings can mean everything when it comes down to these final moments. Only 3 seconds left for the Gladiators.
EMP comes out now from the Toronto Defiant, leading into the front line, but Mirror comes in with one of his own. It's a little bit better still. OG goes down, traded out. Big Goose with the environmental kill. Nevix out of the fight. Agilities has to try and clutch this now. One hook could do it if he can get a kill and secure it. Look at that, Cruz as well, managing to secure the Resurrect onto Karib means that they still have the Ana for this next fight. But Kevster causing some mayhem in the back line, hacked up, can't really go anywhere here. Agilities takes him out. It's a little 2-for-1 action, still going for a little bit more here. Hook finally on cooldown, nails it, finds the hook onto OG, booked up the edge of the map by Big Gusto, trying to turn this one around now for the rest of his team. Translocated back, the Gladiators running this one into the fray, desperately trying to turn this one into their favor. Buying a bit of time, Space gonna get D-Mech now onto the point, just a little bit extra. Mirror still trying to stay alive, trying to keep that overtime ticking for the rest of his team, but it's a difficult ask. Sound barrier now, but the boom comes up. Leap just coming out online. OG has the Primal Rage. Could turn it, but the hack. The EMP comes through. Logic's building it up so quickly, stopping OG right in his tracks. The whole hog across the map from Agilities might just seal the deal here. The players coming all from every angle. But will it even matter in the end as round 1 just desperately trying to turn away, and it does finally go the way of the Toronto Defiant. Scrappy backwards and forwards, ultimates being traded out all over the bloody shop. but it is the Toronto Defiant to walk away with the early win.
That is a huge round to take for the Toronto Defiant, and I want to give a special shout out as well to Agilities. He got nano boosted towards the end of that and came up with pick after pick after pick. Kevster tried his hardest to be able to get the frags that his team needed, but Agilities was always there, a constant presence on the point and able to find so many hooks and individual kills onto players as well. This is a clash of styles here for sure as the Gladiators look to commit again to the Sombra Tracer dive. And the Defiant, are they really going to run Nevix on the Reinhardt? What is this look?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Nevix is a real jack-of-all-trades player, and he always has been.
He really
so
is.
It seems like a good meta for him to try and play this. Hook is going to connect. Does find a target, finds space, but luckily his team were there just to try and peel for him. You can see Logic's now opting into the McCree as the Gladiators are wrapping all the way around, trading the positioning here. Nevix looks like he wants to try and trade a couple of blows, but it's a difficult endeavor for him to try and get up close and personal like he wants here. A lot of this is going to be relying on agilities.
It's a pretty solid rush comp from the Toronto Defiant, except that they're very spread out and they don't really have an off-tank that synergizes. So they're relying on agilities to get a lot of individual picks. And in the meantime, the Gladiators can just spread out and surround them and put damage from around. You can see how they've just corralled them all into one small area of the map.
Just a divide and conquer strategy. Kevster building up the early post bomb, and that's enough damage being pumped into them, but gives them the coalescence, not good enough. Kriv unleashed it a little bit too early there when he was on a sliver of health and ended up paying with his life because of it. Not the end of the world for the Toronto Defiant, though, I will say that. Despite the fact that they lose that team fight in the end, they did get the early control point because the Gladiators were forced to rotate around with the positioning. And this is a big part of you know, how the Gladiators are going to be finding success, I think. It's going to be those rotation, finding the positioning, a bit of split, and trying to find those pick-offs. The aggression early on. EMP comes out from Mirror, turning it around, an aggressive approach to try and win the team fight early, and they do just that.
I think that's fantastic, and if Mirror hadn't gone down just then, he would be able to farm so much more of his EMP afterwards. The idea is great. Unfortunately, the death from Mirror is not that good because he can't build up to a next EMP, but they can still rotate their ultimates very effectively. You think about how easy it is for Mirror to build his EMP in these fights. He's fighting against a Roadhog, he's fighting against a Reinhardt that he can get behind as well. It's Christmas for a Sombra in this scenario. And the Gladiators, they're going to be able to respond to any ults that the Defiant throw out, other than Ziggs EMP. That's the big one to monitor for the Defiant.
I wasn't joking when I said a lot of this relies on agilities. Hook plays. You can see the sound barrier used to keep Logics up with his Deadeye. He's not finding any value. Great post bomb from Kevster again, finding the target he needed to. And this is absolute brutality. You can see him tearing through the opposition. 3 kills, I think, in the end for Kevster. Wonderful work. A great teamfight win here for the Gladiators. Not over just yet, though. As you look at the Toronto Defiant's ult economy, they have a lot to work with.
They do. The EMP is important, but the Gladiators are just turning up the tempo again. What? And Agilities goes down so early on. Nevix with the shield not quite there to be able to defend him, and Kevster is just keeping the pressure applied. 90%, and Mirror's at 60% of his EMP. They might have an EMP to be able to counter the Toronto Defiant once we get later on into this engagement. And now Logix moves over to the Reaper. Yeah,
moving over to the Reaper. It's a little bit more sustainable, less useless when it's hacked up, but Zeke getting forced out there by Kevster, winning that. No more EMP for this fight. Karib's already fallen. What a crucial 1v1 to win. Pulse bomb into the EMP comes through. They have to try and turn this, but the Gladiators, they have all the answers. The sound barrier comes out, the tracking from Kevster. It's more than enough, and that is going to be round number 2 going away of the Gladiators in quite a dominant fashion.
Very dominant. The Defiant showed us a rush composition there with the Reinhardt and the Roadhog, and the Gladiators provided a textbook refutation of it. That was wonderful stuff. They were running the same composition that they ran on the first point of Ilios, and it worked perfectly against the Reinhardt and the Roadhog. They just took different angles, surrounded, and collapsed upon them afterwards. And now it looks like we're seeing some Pharah v Pharah. The Houston Outlaws got a lot of flack for running their Pharah on day 1, but we've seen the Chengdu Hunters run some over in APAC. The hero itself sits at about 20% play rate, and now the Gladiators are going to pull it out alongside the Toronto Defiant here on Ilios.
A lot of opportunities here to get some damage done. And a lot of this is going to be based off of this fire duel. As you can see, Mirror's just prioritizing the ground targets. So you can chunk down any of them. Kevster, the Widowmaker, which is interesting. They don't seem to be aware of this at all. The off angle being taken, but the heals come through. No headshots to be found here. Zeke needs to be careful, though. He is doing just that.
Direct rocket to the face.
Yeah, the stray rockets are finding their targets. Toronto going for a bit of a dive attempt here as they're trying to move through. Mirror will fall. They denied a resurrect. Looks like they will be able to do that as they have gained early control of the point, but Logics will fall. An opportunity, maybe, with the res onto OG. Definitely the Gladiators going to be looking to recontest this now. The concussion blast is going to be knocking them just off the point momentarily. No one going off the edge. See them just trying to fight for positioning here. Zeke does not want to poke his head up because, again, Kevster's still on that Widowmaker.
Yeah, still hanging around, and he's going to try and take the direct 1v1 against Mirror. Mirror was so greedy in the previous fight, trying to kill Cruz over and over again. And instead, Zik just took the Pharaoh 1v1. Agilities is holding down this point, though, as well. He's already taken down Space, his former Los Angeles Valiant teammate.
Okay, wonderful stuff there from Karuv, getting to sleep off onto OG when he was nanoed, completely negating that ultimate. But he did manage to bring down Cruz in the end. Still, Agilities will contest the point, has the whole hog, decides to let it go, and there you go, OG falls. Still in control of the point. The Toronto Defiant not willing to give this up that easily.
Very difficult for them to be able to kill Agilities here. Mirror can't do enough consistent damage because Zik is controlling the air around the point, and Kevster can't get angles. They have no Sombra. The Bionades are attempting to be threaded through, but this one only catches Cruz.
Mirror, though, with the fade away, the damage boosted rocket. Zeke goes down, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to resurrect that because it was too far behind enemy lines. An opportunity now for the Gladiators. We'll see if they can take it. The hook comes through. Space not going to be DMEC. The barrage leaning into it. And that's more than enough damage to get the job done. Squeaky clean here as the Gladiators are able to win out this team fight. Yeah, it's still just going to stall it out, but yeah.
That was a great opening for the Gladiators, but it all relied on them winning the Pharaoh 1v1. The big difference between these two compositions is that with Logics and Agility, the Toronto Defiant can take space without relying on their Pharah. But because the Gladiators are running a Winston and a Diva that have to be a bit afraid of Agilities on the hog, they need to win the Pharah 1v1 in order to take any space. They do it though again. Mirror wins the 1v1 against Zik. He gets rezzed, but that's got to give a bit of a confidence boost. And the fact that the res is out is a huge advantage in this team fight.
Yeah, they have to try and win this one overwhelmingly, though. The nano boost applied onto Zeke. He has to hit a rocket or two, and he's found it. Shaz is his target. Going to be matched almost instantly. Space DMEC'd, and he's the one next. And this is almost singular team fight territory. The Toronto Defiant, with overwhelming brute force, to push their way onto the point. They find the opening picks. Not over just yet, though. The Resurrect did come out, and Space will be back into this fight. OG trying to turn it with the Primal Rage, but that's now faded in the barrage just to peel them away. Another DMEC here onto Space, but he does get the self-destruct off, but unfortunately fell in the fight, which means he won't be getting the remech. OG cannot really even touch onto this point, and Agility's just so strong, able to just get this foothold on the point, and this looks like it could be it. It is. The Toronto Defiant taking map number 1. What a start to our first match of the day. I mean, Josh, we said there could be upsets. We said the potential was there with the flux in the metagame. Could you imagine? Could you imagine the Toronto Defiant taking this one map early lead?
Yeah, the Toronto Defiant did make a run earlier on in our season. They go to the semi-finals of the Summer Showdown with Agilities playing the Genji. Now Agilities on the Roadhog, and they've started out in a very good way to be able to upset our number 6th seed in North America, the Gladiators here again. This is brewing to be a fantastic game. The Gladiators, we often talk about them making mistakes and losing series. They didn't lose that first map. The Defiant came out there and won it. So that set us up for a great continuation of this series. I feel like it's pretty much neck and neck between these two teams.
It's so interesting as well, considering that Gladiators had their pick of the litter when it comes to the teams they wanted to face, and it ended up being the Toronto Defiant who they ended up picking. So really interesting turn of events here that they've gone for this, and the Toronto Defiant winning that early map. I mean, it's shaping up to be an absolutely astounding series. Will we see even more upsets? Will we see even more brackets busted of the 150 remain? We're going to find out soon after the break. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen.
Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor. The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Who would have thought it? Currently, the Toronto Defiant leading 1-0 here in our second round of the knockout games. And it's shaping up to be quite an interesting one, Josh, because I feel like I've seen this storyline before in the Summer Showdown. The Toronto Defiant, when they went on that miracle run all the way into the semi-finals. Could this be the makings of a new run for the Toronto Defiant?
Yeah, I think it definitely could be. I mean, it comes down to, at the end of the day, whether or not the Defiant have got what it takes to be able to take this Hog Zarya, Hog Diva composition, however they want to run that blend of it, and push it through all of the maps in the series. Remember that this is the playoffs, so the loser of the previous map now gets to pick. So the Gladiators get to pick their selection moving into the next maps, and they can directly try and pick maps that don't work very well for the Defiant's kind of style.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've got a couple of substitutions that have been made as well. When I say a couple, I believe just the one. Birdring is going to be playing for Mirror. You remember at the top of the show, we got some insider information that Birdring was actually feeling under the weather. He was sick. He was ill today. They weren't really intending on playing Birdring at all. Now they're subbing him in the moment of need. Yeah. This is Birdring going to be powering through his illness to play what presumably the Gladiators were always intending to play, or what they were always practicing.
Yeah, I got some more information from the Gladiators team as well, and they said that Birdring felt well enough to be able to warm up today, so fortunately he is going to be able to sub in for our second map here. So, you know, Birdring's still probably not at 100%, but feeling well enough and feeling probably like this is a match that is so important that he is going to give it his all and actually felt like he was capable of being able to play today. So
yeah,
enormous respect for Birdring to be able to play while he's feeling under the weather, and they weren't quite sure. It was a bit touch and go there for a while, but at least for the moment, Birdring is going to be in the starting lineup for the Gladiators as we head into our second map, and it was the Gladiators map pick, and it is going to be Hollywood.
Yeah, and as we take a look at our fastest times here presented by Xfinity, you can see who holds the records right now when it comes to Hollywood across the board. As you can see, these teams are not on either side, as far as I can see. Just get a quick little read over the opponents, but no. So a lot of the fastest times being held by, as you can see, the Spark actually against the Hunters. I wonder when that was. That's an interesting one with the time bank, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe some records to be broken today. It's already looking like a bit of an upset day, so why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you've got to anticipate as well that the Gladiators have some kind of set plan here. They've subbed out Mirror, who would normally be their Sombra player, and instead they're running Birdring and Kevster. Kevster is extremely flexible, I mean, as is Birdring, to be honest, but primarily this season, judging from what they've played so far over the course of 2020, maybe we'll see some kind of double hit scan look for them coming out here. And perhaps more of a focus on shutting down Agilities, who's going to be in that main tank Roadhog role. Agilities was afforded a lot of space and a lot of respect when it came to Ilios, both on the well portion and then later on. Agilities for a moment there was on the Winston, and I thought we were going to see some history being made. Maybe that would have gone down in the fastest times ever on Hollywood, Brent, if Agilities was on the Winston. But they're going to be running him on the Roadhog as expected.
Think through the history of the Overwatch League. We've seen some unconventional players playing Winston, Taimu, Rouge Hong.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Who else? A lot of names that come up. God, I don't think I'd want to see Agilities make that list. But yeah, we're heading into this now, and it seems like the Toronto Defiant are not going to be opting to change much up. And Josh, what you were saying just then is perfectly right. I think Agilities was given so much respect, so much space. No one really dealt with him, and many times he was able to clutch up those team fights. When we were on Ilios and what we just saw, the Gladiators look like they're changing up not really that much here, going for a rush comp here.
This is just a rush composition. Oh, Shaz goes down at the beginning, though. Agility's already making his presence felt on the map, and the Gladiators are going to go all the way behind. But they still need to be able to sync up with Shaz later on in the engagement. So as Shaz gets closer, you can see the Logix is just hunting him down.
What have they done here? I mean, do they realize they still have to get point A here? They're just playing very split. And yet, Shaz is just caught out of position.
They're attempting to reconnect with Shaz. Shaz has got his fade, so he can get back to the rest of the team once his team fight begins. But as soon as they see him going for it, look, the fade is forced out, and now the timing of the engagement is perfectly read. Zik does get hacked, but Big Goose goes down immediately, and they've had to sacrifice all of their position just to reconnect with Shaz. That is a whole minute burnt off the clock there for no good reason.
Yeah, and you can see Birdring moving over to the Reaper just to try and deal with Agilities, giving them a bit more brute force to try and push through this. Also handy character, handy hero to have as well when he's hacked up as well. But this is just brutal for the Gladiators. Already a minute and 20 seconds shaved off the clock because of Agilities' individual plays, getting Shaz out of that fight. Round 2 though now for the Gladiators, a clean start for them to see if they can engage into this, but it's the early EMP, and that spells an early defeat right away. Ooh, Birdring will trade it out, but Cruz should be able to get that res off, and he will just do that.
It's just going to get rezzed, and that's a very clean teamfight win for the Toronto Defiant. The Gladiators got destroyed there. EMP'd, immediate hook comes down at the OG as well. Obviously nothing to defend him when everybody has their abilities taken away. And the Defiant are sitting pretty on, like, there's potential here for a Nano Barrage to come through as well that the Gladiators don't really have many tools to be able to deal with now that they're running the Moira. Great hack though onto Agilities. He needs to die, but the Nano is there.
Wow, they get a peel off as well to heal the Nano. Everything comes through to try and help him out. EMP from the Gladiators. Goes on to a couple of targets here. An opportunity for them to try and turn this one, but it seems like the Gladiators are in complete control once again. And yeah, off the back of this, only a couple of targets remain. Birdring cleaning up. A nice take here from the Gladiators, just off the back of the EMP, and Kevster stayed alive in that fight, which means he's 50% to the next one.
Yeah, a huge build on that EMP. I mean, it is very easy to build those fast EMPs against what the Defiant are running. The Hog and the Diva are just ult batteries for Kevster. He should be getting these EMPs up insanely fast. Logic so close to his own. And really, the big difference maker for me in that fight was that Zik did not get an opportunity to use his barrage at any point. So he wasn't able to make that play. And now the Gladiators are in control of the tempo. And murdering Death Blossom is perfect to be able to peel for that barrage.
Oh my goodness, the Death Blossom to counter the barrage. You don't see that every day.
No, you don't.
The Gladiators probably going to be quite pleased with that as well. OG just about getting hacked at the tail end of his Primal Rage and another team fight win. 3 minutes. He did not want to get that cart held up at the early sections here of Hollywood, but opportunity
Gladiators
for
need to play fast again here, Brent. They need to try and use Kevster's EMP before Logix can use his. A hack onto Zik is fantastic, but they need to turn up the tempo. They have the high ground. Find a good opportunity to engage and go before the Defiant can really set up.
An opportunity here for him to do so.
They're just trying to push the payload forwards, but Agilities is blocking it. I think they need to go faster.
Logix is caught with that EMP, and that's going to be the Toronto Defiant finding the picks actually off the back of that. Logix now just using it at the tail end of the fight to try and turn this one. It is quite scrappy. They're all over the place currently. But yeah, seems like Toronto have a decent chance, a decent foothold at least to just hold on to this one. Is Agility's going to go for any of these hooks? Okay, just missing his target. It is scrappy, Josh.
Well, also the Gladiators used their best tool there, and they had momentum on their side that they let trickle away. So this is now the Defiant in pretty thorough control. Yes, they're not going to be able to control the high grounds particularly, but unless the Gladiators can get massive value out of this sound barrier, Agilities though gets nanoed and saved it again.
Yep. Well, the sleep dart was missed there from Kariv, and he could not connect it onto Birdering with the Death Blossom. 2 kills early on. Even trades though, and the rest comes out onto Kariv here. Could be an opportunity for him to turn this one. The Bionade will connect onto him, but hacked up in the corner. They have to peel for Kariv. He's one of their major win conditions. The longer he stays alive, the better it will be. But Space with the Baby Blaster just pulling out the gap. Why not? Going for it, running up on man, but going to see the Gladiators now have an opportunity to take this fight into their own hands here. It's hard to see who's really in control of this team fight, but EMP now committed by Kevster, but not getting the pickoffs they need off the back of it. In fact, Agility's back in the fight now with his own plays. The Roadhog hooks coming through. Does take out Kevster. OG getting hacked up out of his Primal Rage, which just completely negates it, but Agility's bashes into the corner means that he won't be able to play this much longer.
So scrappy from both of these teams here, but basically because the Gladiators refuse to lose, they are throwing ults and throwing bodies into this fight in just sheer determination. EMP comes out from Logix, that catches a few players, but no real follow-up available with Zik already dead.
Don't really have the positioning for it. The tanks are coming in for a bit of a second attempt at things, but Agility's going down. Should put an end to all of this. The Pulse Bomb actually just stopped anyone from trying to contest this point. You can see the support line of the Toronto Defiant already getting out of there. Do not want to be facing them whatsoever. And Kevster just happy to just try and build up his EMP as he's leading the charge for the rest of his team.
See if they can continue this momentum going forwards as well. This is something that they obviously need to draw back and push the payload forwards, and it was something that really stalled them out when they came to point B. They have a minute and a half on the clock. Birdring going back over to the Reaper here, and Kevster with an EMP available. Who's preemptively popping the Valkyrie and looking to move forward. You can see what a centerpiece Agilities is in this comp. He gets nano, the reaction nano coming out from Kariv.
And he's going to be afforded a little bit more aggressive positioning when he knows the Nano Boost is available. It forces the Gladiators back, but nice early picks, nice sleep into the hook. Means that Kevster will go down, and that should honestly put an end to this team fight pretty currently. Now, it seems like the Toronto Defiant are still getting away with murder here. Is there anything, Josh, that the Gladiators could do to try and put an end to Agility's reign of terror? Is there anything that they're doing incorrectly when it comes to playing against this comp currently?
I mean, I think the issue is that whenever they're committing onto Agilities, the Nano Boost always seems to be available. Kariv is building that up really quickly, and the Gladiators, I think, aren't maybe keeping track of it, and so whenever they invest the EMP, the hacks, to be able to kill him, he's just there, able to be saved. Again, they're healed up, and with the whole hog available, there's just so many tools to keep this guy alive, and OG, he's the one that falls instead.
Okay. Concussion blast straight away into the barrage. Just try and turn this fight around, and Agility's behind enemy lines. Gets hacked up and taken out. You've lost your centerpiece of the composition here. A bit of an overextension means that the Gladiators with a superior spawn point, will be able to move into this fight now. Bit of an advantage. I don't think that hack was intended. Oh, yeah, Kevster was invisible, so couldn't quite see him.
Yeah. Samba available here. I mean, there's just so many tools for both teams. The Gladiators are going to get some free push because the Toronto Defiant want to fight them at the choke point instead. But they have that nano available. So it comes down to whether Logix can get a nice EMP. You can see him up top. Kevster around the back, deep into enemy lines, but Logix is up top as well. Both teams attempting it. That didn't catch the Pharah, but it did catch both tanks.
The Pharah was the target, but look at that OG, the control, the moves. Look at him go in close quarters. The Primal Rage catching both of the supports. What a play, but then he leaps into the self-destruct. What a turn of events, and it still does not matter. The space was created. Despite the fact that it had a bit of a wacky ending, the Gladiators are going to get that full completion. And a wonderful execution of ultimates to be able to secure that one for them.
Yeah, I mean, that just looked hilarious towards the end there. But enormous credit to Kevster, who was playing the Sombra for the Gladiators. And I think crucially there, the big difference was that his EMP, even though he was staring at Zik and looked like it was supposed to be aimed at the Pharah, the key difference was that it hit Agilities and Kariv. So even though the Nano Boost was available for Kariv to save Agilities, he got caught in the EMP, so he wasn't able to use it. And that is the thing that the Gladiators had failed to do throughout the whole of the rest of their push on Hollywood. They hadn't been able to catch both Agilities and Kariv. So there was always either the heal from Agilities or the Nano Boost from Kariv available to keep that pig alive. And in that final engagement, they executed perfectly. Maybe perhaps a bit of a mispositioning from Kariv, who maybe should have been playing a little more safe. Normally, throughout the rest of the map, he was holding very far away from his front line in order to get that Nano Boost off every single time.
Yeah, so much relies on that, doesn't it, with this composition? It's all about agilities and making sure he receives the Nano Boost at the crucial time when they try and dive on him.
I mean, the Annas are just so important, and you could see that yesterday with Myeonbong carrying the Boston Uprising as well. If you land big Bionades and important Nano Boosts, and even sleeps as well, it can be arguably the most important hero in these comps.
A defensive wrecking ball. That's what the Gladiators are just teasing us with here. As you can see, OG just holding down the flank, as it's a very wide angle that the Gladiators are trying to occupy. You know, let the Toronto Defiant get through the choke point. Just searching for a shot or two. As you can see Birdring just hopefully right now just checking to see if there's any Sombra nearby, and also seeing if he can get a head or two as well clicked.
This is a lot of poke damage.
Yeah.
The Zenyatta, the damage boosted Birdring on Ashe, the Tracer, but it relies on OG making space for the rest of his team. If the Defiant take presence over the point, they'll just get pushed back into a corner, the Gladiators, and lose.
Gladiators are peeling pretty effectively here. They're backing off a Birdring. Fade away headshot straight away. The damage boost slapped on top. This bad boy can fit so many headshots in it, and Gladiators just turning it around. Right in the blink of an eye. Perfectly just accepting, yeah, I mean, just Shaz cleaning up at the end here as well, but just wonderful play as well from the Gladiators when it comes to their positioning. Just accepting the aggression from Toronto, molding into it, and then just answering back.
Yeah, totally. Shaz just peeled backwards towards the cafe, as did Birdring. The heals were all there, and OG and Space are the ones that have to disrupt the Toronto Defiant and provide opportunities for Birdring to hit those shots. They did a great job peeling this time. Let's see if they can do it again. But oh, there's multiple ultimates available. The Nano Boost goes down onto Zik, so he doesn't have to fear anything. And they also forced out the Transcendence from Shaz with that Pulse Bomb. But Birdring again just continues to dominate. The DPS line of the Gladiators is just so clutch.
That is absolute chaos. I can't believe that. The Pulse Bomb from Logix did force out that Transcendence, but yeah, the Gladiators holding on and able to find the openings they needed, the ultimates they had available. And I mean, just like that, so much being built up already. The Gladiators now working with so much the mines from OG, able to just stop any sort of push attempt going through this now. Agility's maybe able to clear it with his Breather. He's going to be looking for the early mines here. And look at that, they do get the kill straight away, rolling in. OG so clean.
That's beautiful stuff. The aggression there in the mines. I know Agility thought he could tank it, He thought he would be able to be safe. He's got a 50% damage reduction, plus some healing, plus he's got his supports there as well. But the Gladiators had follow-up after the minefield was used as well. And so far, I'm loving how the Gladiators are playing this. It comes down to Birdring and Kevster being very talented at the heroes they're playing as well. But the positioning and the way they're just accepting this aggression, I love that phrase you used, Brent, because that's exactly what they're doing. As the Defiant push in, they back off and they just accept it. They give up the space and they collapse onto them afterwards.
It's something you see from a lot of top teams, the confidence to know that they can retake the fight when it's more favorable for them once the cooldowns are used from the front of Defiant. And Agility's so much relies on this guy to hit his hooks. So much. He needs to get these early pickoffs for his team to try and turn things around, but it's so difficult to do. With the positioning the Gladiators are playing, and look at the aggression now. Self-destruct comes in. There's a bit of a set play trying to make happen, but look at this. The back line is really in a bit of trouble here. Big Goose taken down as well. No resurrect for the next fight. And Defiant in a very, very good position now to just take this first initial point right in the nick of time. As you can see, they only had a couple of seconds remaining, but they will get an opportunity now to push into the later sections of Hollywood.
The Defiant found a really good spot there where they could push Shaz and Birdring into a little corner. And Logix and Zik were right there. The coordination perfect between the Defiant DPS line. And the Defiant want to control this high ground. They don't really have a composition that is great at sitting up top. Agilities obviously has to wait for the elevators. They've only really got Nevix and Zik who would normally play up there. Oh, and Kariv falls! What an enormous pick from Kevster! He's just in the backlines causing chaos!
Yeah, whatever reason, there's no resurrect available. Didn't catch if it was off cooldown or not, but
I think they just weren't there with him. I mean, Cruz was pushing forward with Zik, trying to take territory. Yeah. Nobody was playing with Kariv. They just assumed that he was safe. It's
going to stop them for a short while, but the ult's coming online now. Look at the positioning. Coachkin comes up, Bob as well, trying to take him out, and that was the Nanoboost applied onto Zeke. He almost got obliterated, destroyed from just the raw damage. The mines now come through into the pile driver. No targets to be found as Defiant are playing this quite patiently. Still, Logix will be meeting his end as he just walks into the mines, and the post bomb from Kevster will do the dirty work. Taking out the necessary targets, giving the Toronto Defiant a direct one-way shot to the respawn room, and you can see the Gladiators now in a very comfortable position, and it feels like this entire map they have been completely comfortable.
Yeah, they've been very much in control, and they have control of the high ground now as well, which is so important. It just gives Shaz a safe place to sling his orbs from. And Zik, even though he's on Farah, he's not actually going to be that far above everybody else because they're on top of enormous buildings. And the skybox, it's not that much higher than the buildings are themselves. So the Gladiators are in perfect position here. Birdring and Shaz should be able to apply a lot of pressure. That bomb, though,
sent into the backline, doesn't get what they were looking for. Kills flowing through here now. The Resurrect was committed onto Shaz to try and bring him back up, but the Toronto Defiant with an enormous advantage coming into this fight. Logic's taking a 1v1, will win it out. Not quite a 1v1, had the assistance of the rest of his team. But now with 30 seconds left, the Toronto Defiant have a nice holding position, a defensive position here onto the high ground as they're spamming in with the rockets. What can the Gladiators do here, Josh?
The Gladiators are going to come out and recontest the stick. That's so nice on the Space immediate demech. And Space is the person that needed to make the space for everybody else. The rest of his team has to try and get in through the choke points now. Birdring down to very low health as he attempted to get an angle. And Shaz as well is just a snack on the floor for Zik.
Still finding the pickoffs though. Kevster and Birdring turning up massively for this one. Zeke's gonna try and turn it. He has to hit it. Using the barrage, committing it with the peel. Space was there, ready and waiting. The defense matrix able to keep him healed up and healthy. And the Toronto Defiant collapsing, crumbling. No one will stand up to the might of the Gladiators as they will be walking away with map number 2 in this series.
Great performance from the Gladiators there. They looked like they were in control for the entirety of that map. They had a pretty good attack. managed to get it towards the end. They were getting stalled up a little bit by the Agility's Hog, but they always had some way of getting it past the important choke points in Hollywood. And on defense, they showcased something different that we haven't really seen yet from the Gladiators, but also from a lot of these teams, is a good Mercy Zen backline where they're able to use that, and also OG on the Wrecking Ball to be able to disrupt the enemy team and have a very powerful pokey backline. I like that look, and I also like, Bren, that the Gladiators are showing us multiple looks. They're showing us the Sombra Tracer, they're showing us the Birdring on the hit scan, on the Ashe. It's a great thing when you're approaching the playoffs and you have a deep playbook. Birdring coming back into the roster as well, performing incredibly despite the fact that he's under the weather, and we're at 1-1. You couldn't ask for a better game so far.
Yeah, an unreal performance from the Gladiators to try and turn that one around. They do just that. So we're going to be going to a quick break. When we come on to the other side of it, though, our analyst desk is going to be breaking down all the action thus far. Do not go anywhere, guys. You got time for a little snack, a little drink. We'll be back soon with more Overwatch action.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to your game break presented by Cheese It Grooves. And I have discovered that one of the things I love about this game is it answers the age-old question that mankind has been pondering for centuries, which is who would win in a fight? Intelligent space gorilla or human pig hybrid? And it turned out in map number 1, it was the hog that was really coming out on top, Custer.
Yeah, but in map number 2, it was the space hamster in a massive iron wrecking ball. So, you know, we don't really know what to expect, but in the first map, you saw the effectiveness of the Roadhog really sort of acting as a pseudo anchor for the Toronto Defiant, and you saw it especially on the Lighthouse map. When you got agilities onto the point as that Roadhog, it's really hard for a dive composition like the Los Angeles Gladiators to really sort of get him off of it, and that's sort of why I think the Toronto Defiant was so successful in the first map. So Roadhog's effectiveness, and it seems like Toronto Defiant is leaning heavily into this, is going to go from map to map, because as we went on to Hollywood, you saw it was a lot harder for them to sort of have that effectiveness because agilities couldn't get that space. Gladiators were playing so aggressive to the point that agilities really couldn't do anything, and he was dying every time he tried to move forward.
Yeah, it felt like the Los Angeles Gladiators came into this matchup obviously probably expecting that the Toronto Defiant were going to play a Roadhog composition and try to play this maybe Pharah, Sombra heavy composition as well. But it seems like the Gladiators are trying to figure out the game as it really goes. I don't think they necessarily expected the Toronto Defiant to be this good at this composition. And you mentioned agilities on that Roadhog, obviously a big impact player for the Defiant. But as the Gladiators sort of started to figure out how the Toronto Defiant were playing, we saw when we went over to Hollywood, the Gladiators really come alive. They started off playing this Winston composition with the Sombra and the Reaper. Obviously had some issues synchronizing with Chaz at the start, which led to some awkward moments. But then later on second point, you saw the dives coming in. Birdring got this nice Death Blossom going as well. At third point, they ended up winning based on OG's great juggling on this Mercy. I mean, this is peak Winston gameplay right here. And then right after this, gets Diana. And then right after this, for some godforsaken reason, OG decides to... Okay, he was jumping into the explosion.
Cut it before
there,
the bad part
we didn't
came.
see it. Yeah, before... You know, that's... I wish my career worked that way. Unfortunately, it didn't. You know, it was the other way around. But, you know... That's how it goes. We didn't have dedicated observer before the Overwatch League. So anyway, also I really enjoyed what we saw later on the defense for the Los Angeles Gladiators, obviously playing the wrecking ball, but we'll get more into that in our crunch time, Frankie.
Yes, crunch time presented by Cheese It Grooves. Do you want to get into it?
Sure, yeah,
Right
we'll get into the crunch time. Thank you, Frankie.
Why not?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's great. Lovely. Yeah, so on the defense for the Los Angeles Gladiators, OG swapped over to this wrecking ball, and it just changed the entire momentum behind the game, because the Gladiators, they were playing so all in to begin with. They were playing OG on the Winston, and they had troubles really engaging on top of the Toronto Defiant. But then when OG swapped over to this wrecking ball, suddenly the Gladiators are in control of the entire matchup, and now the Defiant are forced to deal with OG. Like he's like Among in North America over here, just like doing so much work with the mines and everything going on, and it allows Birdring on the Ash to have way more impact. It allows Kevster to work around the angles on the Tracer as well. So I really like this look coming in from the Gladiators, and very promising for the rest of the series.
Yeah, I think that's a really important... Oh, sorry, Frankie, I wanted to follow, because like I don't think it's one of those scenarios where it's not just OGEs being more effective on the wrecking ball, it's having sort of a trickle-down effect of all of a sudden we're seeing Kevster be significantly more impactful on that Tracer as he has more freedom to move around the backline. And Birdring was doing so much work on that Ash. I want to see them stick with this Ash Mercy Tracer wrecking ball style going further into the series, because it doesn't seem like Toronto Defiant have an answer to all of those issues. Birdring was just 15,000 damage per 10 minutes is what I saw on the stat card. That's how free Birdring is to just be damage boosted and just shoot freely. So if they stick with this, I see them doing very well against the Toronto Defiant in the rest of the series.
Well, Birdring's obviously had a lemsip or something, because he was on fire. He's not being substituted for our next map, so we're going to see him on Anubis, and we're going to be seeing that after the break with Brent and Sideshow.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheese It Grooves. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch.
You just gotta keep moving forward. You just gotta keep moving forward.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
One so far for our first match of the day, and it's shaping up to be a good one. Currently a clash of two stars. Currently though, the Gladiators showing us the most looks and really the most depth, I think, for the rest of this potential series and maybe even a bit more into the future. Good signs early on though from both of the teams.
Definitely. I think that the Defiant are playing something kind of dangerous though as well. The desk was talking about it a little bit where Custer was saying, sure, the Hog is more of an anchor, but how do they deal with maps going on throughout this series? Well, the Defiant don't really have to worry about that for this map coming up because they get to select it because they lost Hollywood. So this could definitely be a bit of a back and forth where we see the map selection indicating which team is actually favored in the map coming up, and that could dictate the entire course of the series. The Gladiators, I think, are always going to be the ones reacting and trying to counter the Agility's Roadhog because they know it's coming. He doesn't play any of the other main tanks that you would field in this meta, so they know the Agility's Hog is going to be here. How do they deal with it?
Notice the stretching going on from these players as well. You know, they're getting primed, getting ready, getting limber for the game at hand.
Limbered up.
I'm going to let you in a little behind the scenes here, Josh, as well. During halfway through that last map, I tried to stretch like that in the middle of the cast, and I felt the blood rush from my head. And I had to sit down a little bit. You took it away.
Incredibly unfit during lockdown, are you?
I mean, probably a terrible sign for my circulation. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, but yeah, you know, almost fainted on the broadcast. Not quite fainted, but a bit of an exaggeration there. Still, enough about my personal health, because that's what the people are here to listen about. English
Certainly is.
language.
Gladiators, though, I think have shown us something very promising here, Brent. They've shown us this Mercy Zen defense that I think could be really powerful on point A here of Anubis. Anubis, obviously, the Toronto Defiance map selection because they lost on Hollywood, so they feel like the Roadhog is going to be really good here, and I can see why. You can just barrel it down main, you can take a lot of space with it, it's going to be difficult for that Roadhog to die, but at the same time, the Gladiators are running a composition that is designed to just shoot you from the high ground, and the Toronto Defiant, they don't really have a good selection of heroes to push people off that high ground. Who is going to pressure Shaz and Birdring once they're set up there? It's going to be very difficult unless Agilities hits a crazy hook or Zik can land some awesome rockets.
Is that the purpose of Shaz on this Zen? Is that just purely for the Discord orb to try and burn down Agilities when they're getting through the choke point?
Well, I think also it provides a lot of damage from a high ground position. Because they know Agilities is never going to be playing that Winston, he can just sit up there forever.
Right. Interesting look at it, yeah. You'd think that you wouldn't really run the Zen against the Ana. The Bionade kind of counters a Transcendence, gives you much more consistent win conditions, but Gladiators reading the composition that's in front of them. And
Shaz is also positioned very far forwards. I thought Shaz would be positioned at the back. Instead, it's Birdring at the back. Coach Gun to escape. Cruz has already fallen, but Big Goose has been hacked. Shaz has already gone down. Both supports here annihilated from the Gladiators as their back line, it's in pieces.
Yeah. Absolutely destroyed. Only a couple of players remaining now for the Gladiators to try and clean this one up. And OG rolling through, did manage to take out Logix. The hook is going to miss here in the end, but Kevster goes down regardless. And it should be just an easy win now for Toronto Defiant. Don't think anybody's going to be contesting this one anytime soon. They don't really have the bodies for it. A nice take here from the Toronto Defiant, recognizing that dive, recognizing the vulnerabilities.
I mean, you don't expect the Defiant to be able to set up an effective dive, but Nevix found a flank, and Logix was there in position as well. So that little combo of Nevix flying in and Logix already there was pretty great. And now Zik, oh, look at that.
I love this. I love the now onto the fire here, just trying to lead it in because you just don't need that much damage to get maximum work done. One direct rocket, more than enough usually. We'll see now. You can see him just using the pillar to try and avoid a lot of this damage. Kevster has to try and turn this one around. The pulse bomb came through, but a resurrect is available and ready and waiting. And there, Agilities though does manage to get that kill into space in the end. The hook comes through and it is going to be clean. Now look at this, the whole hog into the corner, forcing them back, forcing them away from the point, but they're still contesting with a couple of bodies. Transcendent's going to be used from the Gladiators just to keep them back in this fight for a moment longer, but the Mines, it's going to make it very, very difficult for the Toronto Defiant to try and work their magic here. As Agilities goes down, you've lost your Roadhog. Pretty much your entire push attempt is going to be curtains off the back of that.
Yeah. The Defiant are going to struggle here on Anubis, in my opinion, because the Roadhog-esque compositions don't really have the greatest team wipe potential. How do they win a big team fight? Probably on the back of EMP and then Zik going crazy and just getting a bunch of kills, or Agilities perhaps just getting kill after kill after kill, but they don't have a big combo or some kind of natural synergy where they can peel together and get some great focus fire coming out.
EMP into the Nano Barrage might be it, and then now you can see Unleashed, but look at that! Damage boost and the Disco Ball placed onto Zyke, and he is gone, he's down and out. Almost a D-Mech here onto space. Logix is trying to find it, the hack not quite there. Desperately hunting for a target, but the Gladiators are more than happy to stay in control of this one. They win the team fight overwhelmingly so, and with the superior spawn point as well, the closer respawn area. It's going to take more than that from the Toronto Defiant, but that was their best opportunity, honestly. The EMP leading into the Nano Barrage to try and clean them up.
Definitely. They will be able to build them fairly quickly again, though. Kariv is going to be building those nano boosts so fast. He's got a tank line with no shields. They take damage constantly. So that nano boost is going to be up in no time whatsoever. Logix, on the other hand, is going to be a bit slower to build up to the EMP. And with 3 minutes available, we're talking like 2 more EMPs, really. And so 2 more big opportunities, unless the Gladiators make enormous mistakes.
Dive comes through from OG.
Kevster's been slept.
Back line. Kevster slept up, damage boost. From that right click there, Agility is able to take him out pretty easily. Nice hook as well, connecting onto OG just when he needed it, but this fight, it's gone on a bit too long. Toronto can't afford to really be taking this one. They need another pick-off to try and make an attempt, and they recognize that. Just going to be backing off. Shaz goes down, though, but traded out for Kariv as Kevster finds his mark.
Can Kariv be rezzed? If he's possible... Oh, no. Zik has fallen anyway, so this res on Kariv, it doesn't even really matter. The Defiant are just going to get shoved down anyway. Nevix weak, possible D-Mech coming out here, and this stagger's going to be kind of brutal. OG goes even deeper. Space and OG just picking up Agilities and Crews. That's lovely. That's what you want to see. And that's the difference between these two team comps as well. The Defiance is very scrappy. It's got a loose style. They're going to be going in and just brawling. But it's not high tempo. It's slow. And it's difficult to get the kills all at the same time against that spawn advantage. Whereas the Gladiators, if they want to turn up the tempo, if they want to play fast, you can get kills very quickly, one after another. A lot of ults here available again, but Logic's close to that EMP.
And the Defiant are going to be looking for a win here. You can see the Nano comes through again, but Zik cannot play into them. It has to try and prioritize the backline. OG using that Primal Rage to escape. Stay alive for the time being. A lot of damage being done to him. Self-destruct comes through, and OG just got caught at the tail end of this, but it needs to be a cleaner fight than that. Self-destruct from space just to stall them out as they're trying to work their way in through this choke point, but they're dealing with all sorts of damage that's going on in the backline. Kevster is really being a nuisance again. The EMP comes through. Logic's only connecting onto 2 targets. Yeah, they did catch onto Shaz, but the EMP fades. And He just gets the Transcendence off to try and stall this one. Still, the point almost in their favor to Toronto Defiant, finding opportunities, but Kev still with the pulse bomb. Finding it again, another kill going his way, and the team with the respawns off the back of it are just happily sending it all the way home. And Josh, the more we watch this game, the more it feels like to me that the Gladiators just have a much better comp for what they're being ran. Now, yes, OG's flexing over to the Roadhog here. I believe that was off the spawners to try and turn this around. But it feels like what the Gladiators have been running, whereas we go for this Winston dive composition, it seems a lot more flexible in a lot more scenarios.
It definitely is more flexible, but they still have to give ground to the Defiant when they push in. And that's how the Defiant have managed to get those 2 ticks, is by just pushing agilities onto the point, and the Gladiators team comp wants to do damage. It doesn't necessarily want to go close quarters combat against agilities. So that's the advantage of putting OG now onto the Roadhog as well. Yes, it reduces some of your ability to be flexible, but there's only one fight left here, and it's about who's on the point.
1 tick available. Bomb is going to be sent out now from Birdring. Just to contest up this point. Space defect. Okay, OG slugged up as well.
Destroyed.
Absolutely wrecked in this fight. An opportunity now for the Defiant if they choose to grasp it. Televolt's online. You can see Zeke is just desperately hunting for a rocket, but it's a Falcon Mercy. It's very difficult to try and remove that one. They have to find some more pickoffs. The hack again comes through space with the D-Mech. The Breather just to keep him alive here. Now it is going to be the Roadhog battle of the Hogs. In the back line, finding the pick off. The Transcendence comes through, but a little bit too late now from Shaz. Just trying to keep his team alive. It's all up to him and Kevster to keep this point ticking, keep it going in the end. Shaz has to get a kill. He finds one. The Discord Orb supports him, and Kevster finds it, pushing them off the point.
What a great clutch from the Gladiators. Spawn advantage, of course, in their favor, and they looked like they were going to win that at various times throughout the fight. But what a great final moment there with Shaz and Kevster coming online. The Discord Orb, the Tracer, the shots as well, as Shaz was able to kill. I think that was Zik, was it, up in his face? Sorry, it must have been Logix, actually.
Logix, yeah, on the Sombra. I mean, it's so nice to see, Josh. Like, there's a lot of, I would say there's some cons to a new meta in Flux, is that generally the gameplay is a little bit scrappier, the teams are still finding their footing, but you get those small moments of brilliance that you remember why those players were so sought after way back in the day. Shaz finding the omens, finding his own moments on the Zen, and Kevster as well, clutching with the help of his Discord Orb. So many fantastic moments just there in that finals section. The Gladiators showcasing it. And now, you guys also can be reacting just as I was just then. We know you can't be here in person this year, but we've created React to give you guys the chance to cheer for your favorite team from home with live reaction. So go check it out at the link on your screen. That's blizz.ly/react. Not really, it doesn't really roll off the tongue. Blizzly/react. But you can go check it out and you guys can react in the game with us. You can provide that crowd background noise, a bit like what the NBA is doing, you know, when they're pumping that crowd volume into the bubble. We're going to be trying to get something going like that. So it really does feel like that playoff atmosphere.
Nice, I like it. Because these games, they mean everything for these teams. It's their last chance to be able to make it deep in the playoffs. And the Gladiators are going to run this Sombra Reaper rush kind of composition that we've seen them run in the past a couple of times before so far in this series. It's been reasonably effective. Logix on the Widowmaker could be a huge dampener, but instead it's Zik with the damage boosted rocket straight onto Birdring.
How does he get that as well? Birdring has so many answers to try and avoid some of that damage, but that is the danger, right? Damage boosted rockets through the choke point. Gladiators, they needed to try and break through that, and now Birdring's made the switch. Widowmaker v Widowmaker. Decided his team does not need him. Going to be diving straight onto the high ground here. Gladiators trying to take this even fight, and they catch Karib. It's going to be this Widowmaker 1v1 happening in their favor, but Zeke ends up going down. Cruz does have the Resurrect available, is going to be able to get it off as well. So the Fire Mercy still in play here for the Toronto Defiant. But the Gladiators in control when it comes to the positioning. They've gained a bit of ground here early. Piku's just zipping and zooping around the high sections here of Anubis, hunting for an opportunity to boop somebody out of position for his team to capitalize.
Logix is going to be able to come back into this fight as well. They found the pick on him after he had won the Widowmaker 1v1. But now as things start to stabilize once again, Ultimate's getting up for the Defiant. The Gladiators have got to find a pick, and OG is so weak. He dies to the barrage.
Yeah, so much consistent damage being pumped in here from Logix, but is he going down again here? Logix now Has to try and take things into his own hands. The Valking Mercy! Cruz just takes it against Birdring. It's nothing more annoying than that. But the fight's not over yet. Space with the South Stroke finding it. Logix has to try and clutch this one. And now Big Goose going to be trying to hunt him down. The angle getting spotted out. The point getting capped up slowly but surely. Karib taken out again. Still, Logix just taking his off angles. Finds Big Goose. Comes through. OG taking so much damage. Logix now finding so much work for his team. A potentially turnable scenario now. The Toronto Defiant finding more players as the spawners are coming back into this. The heals need to come through. Someone needs to contest this point up though. They've almost got it and they do just that. 96% and counting. Still staying on the point. Agility's back into it now with the Roadhog. Healing himself up. They're trying to boop them away, but it's still so winnable. Zeke has to hit a rocket or two, but hacked up. He will be a sitting duck on the ground as the Gladiators are happily going to be able to just munch them all up. The players going their way, but have I spoken too soon? Sound barrier now coming out from the Gladiators to try and turn this fight. Have a bit of a health point advantage. You're going to use that to take out the backline now. The Toronto Defiant still working in, but Logix on the Tracer, finding 2 picks of his own. Turning this fight for them, but maybe not. The Gladiators with so many opportunities now as the spawners are coming through. Another post bomb. Logix with 3 kills, but unfortunately not enough to turn the fight for his team's favor. A wonderful solo carry performance.
Yeah, I mean, Logix was just absurd in that entire defense, the headshots he was hitting, and then when he respawned on the Tracer, to be able to find 2 picks in the backline, plus a fadeaway pulse bomb onto Big Goose. The rest of his team couldn't really put anything together. It was a difficult situation for them, and now the Gladiators are rolling forwards, looking to capitalize on the momentum. Cruz, Karib, they caught the ball. Cruz was caught in that EMP, wasn't able to pop his Valkyrie.
So brutal to try and turn this one around now, but the Gladiators, they've got so many pickoffs, it's almost an inevitability. Self-destruct comes through as well. The spawners now coming through to the Toronto Defiant. The Gladiators so close to winning this one, 85% and counting, but a res onto Agilities might turn this one around now. They've got their Roadhog back. The hook is not going to be hitting here, but luckily the picks are going their way as they are cleaning up a couple of the players. Only the stragglers will remain. Just stopping them shy of victory here. It was only 6% away, essentially, from getting that map win.
Think about how much value that Resurrect is onto the Roadhog. The Roadhog is out there, taking the fight, absorbs so much damage, so many resources with his large health pool, plus his heals, plus Kariv potentially nanoing him and healing him. And then after you finally kill Agilities, he gets resurrected again. And that was Cruz coming off the respawn too. So it's they did the hard work of killing the Mercy early on, but they just couldn't stop the res coming through afterwards. It is so difficult to play assault maps with and against the Roadhog. It just changes the dynamic.
600 health swing when you get that resurrect off, but a big EMP is going to be helping them out now. A lot of the damage being put in, but at the end of the day, the nano boosted Roadhog does not care about your EMP. Yes, he can't use the hook. Yes, he can't use the breather, but Agility damage from the gun is still going to be hurting a tremendous amount now. Overlapping the support ult, but Agility's catching him out of the coalescence. Still, the Gladiators finding so many picks as Agilities falls. Griff with a last-minute sleep, a last-ditch effort to try and turn things for his team. The players falling just short of the mark now as the Gladiators are happily just cleaning them up, battering them away. OG controlling the space elegantly, finding opportunities to just set his team up for success again and again and again. Birdering with the Death Blossom on top will definitely seal the deal. And that is going to be map number 3 going away here for the Los Angeles Gladiators, taking it 2-1.
Great performance on Temple of Anubis. That was the Toronto Defiant's map pick as well. So we theorized that this could be going one way than the other based on map selections. Well, the Gladiators have just broken that trend. They've taken away Anubis from the Toronto Defiant, countered Agility's Roadhog, which looked honestly a bit more like a liability when it came to the assault maps. They weren't quite able to close out those team fights, whereas the Gladiators, with OG playing the Winston, were much more mobile and versatile. And they were able to come away with a pretty stonking time bank as well, even on that final push. Just destructive gameplay. And the Gladiators as well, Brent, they have cleaned up their game. No more crazy mistakes happening. No more team fights thrown away. This is peak playoff Gladiators.
I just want to highlight as well, remember guys, Birdring wasn't really supposed to play today. He was sick, he was under the weather. Yes, his team were practicing with him, but he came in anyway. He warmed up and he is playing currently with a bit of an illness. So the fact that he's still performing at this high level, absolutely astounding stuff from the Gladiators, really across the board. So really, really impressive stuff. And we're going to find out, is this series going to be over? Is it going to be done and dusted soon, coming up after the break? Don't go anywhere, guys. More Overwatch League coming up, and maybe the conclusion of our first knockout game.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
What do you think has been the most memorable moment for you in 2020?
Definitely traveling. Like it was obviously shortstop, but Dallas, the Dallas homestand was awesome. I got to see players from other different teams and friends I got to meet up again with, and we had a short boot camp in Korea, which was really dope, like a really dope experience. So I look forward to travel, and obviously next year hopefully it's gonna be way better, and much more of that.
So there we go, yeah. Space misses the traveling, and I mean, I don't blame him, Josh. Personally, it's a big reason why I like doing what I do, is that you get to see a lot of new places, you get to meet a lot of new people, and that's kind of been put on hold this year, which can, I suppose, hamper the motivation as well in a lot of aspects, not just for most people living their day-to-day lives, but I suppose for these pro players as well. It's got to keep that in mind at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important as we come towards playoffs as well to refine that motivation, and I know that Space has talked about that as well, that he's really tried to focus in on the playoffs and give it his 100% towards the end of the season, taking a break from stuff like streaming instead to just put all of his time and attention into that. And as he says, it's going to be amazing whenever we get back to being able to run the homestands as well. I remember being excited for the Gladiators to go on their route around Asia before that was ended up having to be called off. So I'm excited to get back into it, but focusing on the here and now, the Gladiators, they are one map away from being able to progress to the next stage of the playoffs and give themselves essentially an extra life in the 2020 playoffs as well, because they would go into the double elimination portion of it.
Yeah, and it is so important as well to just advance past this, because it's so much uncertainty when you're in this knockout sort of round of games. Remember, loser goes home. That's it. The season's over for whoever loses this series. And right now it is map point for the Gladiators The Defiant going home after, you know, a reasonable showing this year. They've had moments of brilliance, but they do not want to end it just yet. They want to keep it going.
Yeah, it has been a positive year for them overall. They've attracted a lot of really popular players. Their players have sometimes been able to find, you know, new heights. People like Logic still putting up enormous numbers when he's on the Widowmaker, which it looks like he's going to be showcasing for us here again on Dorado. And like you said, Brent, moments of brilliance as well, like when they made the semifinals in the Summer Showdown. They'll be looking to recapture that brilliance that got them to the semifinals there with multiple upsets. It's going to be a tough task. They need to win Dorado and the next map if they want to be able to progress in the playoffs. But Logix and Zik are the ones that are aiming to get them there. The Houston Outlaws were much they were much criticized for their running of the Widowmaker and Pharah, but it makes sense for many portions of Dorado. Houston weren't particularly creative with their timing of it, but Zik and Logix are going to try and make the best of it here.
Yeah, I'm trying to win out this Pharah 1v1. There's mirror matches almost across the board, with the exception, obviously, of the support line and tank line. So not really a mirror match at all. Actually, the compositions are quite drastically different, but at least the DPS are going to be matching up. And you see, currently, Agilities is just trying to work an off angle, see if he can get a pick or two, while his team are just trying to pump in that consistent damage. The hook comes through, but the peel is instantly there, and it's going to be equal trades now as DPS players are just clashing up above. Logic's finding 2 picks. Kevster and Birdring going. Not bad at all.
There's only 1 res. 1 res, 2 picks.
It's going to be hard to try and break the game, just try and get that other player up, but not a halt. You can see the order hooks coming through, really just connecting onto the necessary targets, setting his team up for success here. Logic's, what a player, and Birdring is really going to have one of those Michael Jordan blue games. He wants to try and stand up against Logic when he's feeling himself like this. Could happen, you never know. Shout out to our producers for giving me that Meat Sports reference, but the fight continues. So onto Defiant, working it in with the kills. Oh my goodness, the nano boost straight into the midi. You love to see it, ladies and gentlemen, and just like that, it's going to be checkpoint A taken.
God, Kevster got a nano-boosted rocket straight to the face there. Zik, I love the way that the Toronto Defiant are making use of this. This is the replay of Logix finding those picks earlier on as well. Great shot on Kevster as he's looking to just capitalize on that Pharah 1v1 win. And then you could see Birdring in his sights there towards the end of that replay. That was the second pick that Logix was able to get. Just in quick succession. Both of these Widowmaker players have put up absurd numbers over the course of the season. Logic's throughout the entirety, but Birdring has really heated up towards the end. We know him as a big game player. Obviously not feeling at his best right now, but Birdring's best is unbelievably good.
Yeah, really just a contention for potential best in the world in some roles that he plays. He's just that good. And he has really come alive, actually, quite a lot when he's been playing on this Gladiators squad. It's a new side of Birdring, or at least an old side of it, I should say.
An old side of Birdring, yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's the kind of performances we expected from him when he came into the Overwatch League. Agilities is just such a indomitable presence on this payload. He's very difficult to shift off. And there's no EMP available here to get him off. There's no nano boost or, the biotic nade available to get him off. So he can't be hacked, he can't be bio-naded. Agilities is just going to be able to push this payload unless the Gladiators can kill everybody else.
Look at all the space that's being created right now, the damage comes through, but Zik not able to get the kill. All of it being ate up there by the accessory members here of Gladiators as they're going to be trying to hold on to what little they've got in terms of the positioning. Kevster now with the pulse bomb, great stick. Finds the target necessary. Cruz goes down as well, which means that there's going to be no resurrect now for this fight. Clean fight here from the Gladiators, losing a couple of players at the tail end. Surely not turnable though. Well, never know when Agilities is currently just on the point, gets the breather off. He's just going to be stalling a bit of time here. He does get Big Goose. I mean, he's still alive. He's just being a nuisance here in the small little corridors.
And that's the key word, right? It's just nuisance. Wow, what a great one clip from Kevster. Logic's not giving him the respect he deserves. Resurrect comes out. That means one isn't available for Zik if he ends up getting headshot by Birdring as well.
Yeah, so much pressure, so much on the line. Yeah, Gladiators getting that foothold, pretty important for them. They still need to be careful because Kevster ready and waiting. Recall's used here. Kevster's in danger. 30 health, yeah, I thought he was going to go for the pulse bomb as well, but decided to save it instead. He doesn't have recall still, but goes for the pulse bomb anyway and finds it. Logic's is having a nightmare. Absolute mare currently. The res does come off, but currently just being bullied, unable to take any sort of positioning, any sort of long sight lines. Very difficult for them to get in here.
And I think this is the absolute key to the Gladiators' success. They need to bully the backline. They can't really do anything to Agilities. They just have to stop him capping the payload. But the rest of the team is vulnerable. Kevster again above Logix. Logix is just sat on the low ground trying to counter this Tracer player. Kevster, by the way, to everybody at home that might not be aware, still playing with about 1 million ping because he's in Europe right now. Yeah. So he's performing out of his mind and has been all season long.
Absolutely insane from Kevster. Especially during these playoff years. And there you go. Birdring finding 2. Nicely done. Quick little snap of the wrist, and you can see the headshots flowing. Flooding through. That wasn't quite a headshot, but I'll let you off for the SMG spray down, you know. The Gladiators in a very, very good position. And Josh, it's as you've been saying, you know, this backline has just been getting bullied. Logic's now forced off the Widowmaker. Can't hold it, can't contest. Wow. Another headshot from Birdring.
That's so good as well. Birdring now has no enemy Widowmaker to have to worry about, so he can take much more aggressive angles. And he instantly delivers on that aggressive angle by killing Zik. Forces out the Resurrect, slows down the Toronto Defiant. Kevster now is not so much the star player that is going to be harassing the backline. Now it's on Birdring. The responsibilities have shifted slightly. Birdring is now the one that has no pressure on him.
The rotations around him, and they've caught Kariv out of position here. An opportunity for them if they can try and connect onto it, but the Toronto Defiant, look at this. Zik with the help of his team. The Rockets connecting beautifully, gliding through the air. Only a couple of players willing to stand up to them now as it is going to roll in. Nicely done. 1 minute 30 is what they've got in the time bank, and it was looking so good for the Gladiators, but not able to hold on there.
Yeah, it was a great delay, but Zik was just too powerful. I mean, once he gets in position directly above Birdring, very hard for the Widowmaker to be able to hit that shot. And so Zik, I think he had a nano boost on him at the same time as well. That nano Pharah play is just so crucial for the Defiant. For Zik to be able to take space and not be scared of getting headshot.
Yeah. And I will say as well, that middle section of Dorado is pretty brutal to be playing as a Pharah player. It's so wide, it's so open, you're at really the mercy of a lot of instances of damage. But now you get into this final section, you can start playing the Pharah a little bit more aggressively. You can start working your way into the high ground a little bit.
This final segment, though, is still pretty difficult because you've got a roof above your head. So, I don't know. This is where I was wondering when I was watching Houston use this composition that maybe Hydration should have swapped off. I'm asking the same question here again. Maybe Zik should swap off. There's 30 seconds left here.
You see these slopes? You can glide up and around that. So you can... You can actually survive for a decent amount of time as the Pharah.
The changes to Pharah, though, mean that you have to hit the ground occasionally now. She has been patched recently so that she can't stay in the air for as long.
See if it could be the difference making here. The ult's coming up, and Kevster goes down. That's a damage-boosted rocket. And that's more than enough damage to take him out. Pulse home into the back line as it tries to get turned. Birdring still finding his angles, and this is the angle I was talking about with the Pharah. You can just dodge and juke away from the line of sight, and Anubis comes through. Birdring has to try and hit these shots, but it's not enough. Look at Zik go! The barrage unleashed in close quarters, a dangerous position, but finding the work is done anyway. Space D-Mech not in this fight. Agility's moving forward the whole hog, clearing a path for his team. The road to success, potentially the road to the continuation of this series. As they're making their mark now in the overtime. Sleep comes through, they have to make it clean, and it looks like they are going to be achieving just that. Finally going to be capping it up. All 3 checkpoints going to be theirs. The overtime just about burned for them to get that done. So, wonderful stuff here from the Toronto Defiant. And remember, they are playing for their season here. This is it. If they lose this series, map point, if they lose this map, that is it for them. Their 2020 road is done.
It all comes down to this for the Toronto Defiant. A great offense, though. To be able to capture all 3 checkpoints on Dorado, that's difficult at the best of times. And especially to be able to get so much value out of Zik on the Pharah. He found himself, especially with the nano boosts from Kariv, to be able to play very aggressive. Got on top of Birdring a lot of times and put his counterpart, Birdring, the person that's supposed to be hard countering him, into a really tough position. And that happened on checkpoint B, it happened on checkpoint C. That's how the Toronto Defiant were really able to win. Like you say, Brent, the Defiant are on the back foot. 1-2 down. If they end up losing on Dorado, which was their map pick, back-to-back map picks, of Anubis and now Dorado for the Toronto Defiant. They finished 17th in 2019. That was their first year, with a roster that really didn't have that many expectations. This year, when you have players like Logix and Agilities and Surefour on the roster and Kariv, these are players that have all achieved big things in the past. They would have been hoping for a little higher seeding this year, or a higher placement.
It really will, and if they can drag this one out, maybe even take the win, it would be a hell of a storyline. TP coming through. Going? Okay, this is just to get your supports just basically dodging the line of sight. Yeah, so they can avoid the line of sight, avoid the early damage when they're going out the gates. And you can see Birdering's moved over now to the Widowmaker, so going to be trying to take and opt into this Widowmaker 1v1. Now, Logix has been, generally speaking, getting the better of a lot of this Widowmaker 1v1, but Birdering's no slouch either.
A slow approach from the Gladiators, just being very principled with how they set up on the payload. They don't want to give away an early pick to Logix. A lot of respect being given here.
Jump shot now from Birdering. Hunting for the angle. Does spot Logix, but Logix backs away. And it is just a waiting game because, look, Gladiators playing again this instant diva composition, trying to bide their time, looking for an opening, maybe a pick. A lot of this going to be resting on Birdering's shoulders.
At the same time though, Bren, even if Birdring gets a pick, it's likely to be rezzed. And that's going to slow things down once again as the Defiant find these picks. Zik, though, and Kariv both getting weak. Agilities finds pick after pick. This should still be fine.
Though, right? Surely.
I'm not even sure they need the res, honestly, because Zik's going to be back in the fight, but they invested anyway. Now, actually, with Cruz's res being on cooldown, if Birdring does find a pick here, if Birdring can find a kill onto Logix or Zik, it does open up a bigger window of opportunity than normal.
Yeah, to give them that small window, as you said, just to try and break into. But the amount of time they're taking to try and get into position here, it's going to be resurrect cooldown. What a hook! Oh my goodness, Agilities! Finding magic out of thin air. I mean, he didn't quite pull a rabbit out of his sleeve, but I guess a OG is good enough.
I gotta say, Shaz on the offense isn't finding these angles to be able to get damage or Discord orbs out, particularly. He hasn't been able to have impact. They would love, I think, to have an Ana right now, to be able to bionate Agilities and just make him a bit more scared, push him back a little bit to take that space from him. But instead, the Gladiators really rely on just one big push.
Oh, it's so much damage! Damage boost Discord and the Discord orb being placed, and Capstone 2! You gotta be kidding me! This guy turning up just as we were talking, Josh, just as you were saying. You know, what have they got to deal with Agilities? No Bionate to stop him, and nothing like that.
Incredible. That was awesome to watch from the Gladiators. And just as I was doubting the Zen pick, it comes up clutch. The Discord Orb plus Pulse Bomb just does stupid amounts of damage.
And then when you apply
the damage boost as well onto Big Goose, or from Big Goose rather, he melts.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm very happy to be wrong there. That was wonderful to watch. Almost came out of nowhere.
It really did. Blink of an eye. You would have missed it.
No one can hide.
But ults are coming online for the Toronto Defiant. You can see they've got the infra sight, so the vision is available for them with Logix having these walls. This is going to be buying them a lot of time here. OG just leaping up and backing away with the rest of his team. Does have the barrage available. Zeke, that is, but the opportunity to use it is going to be pretty slim. Logix finding a headshot onto Kevster on the flank. That was Kevster probably trying to push Logix out of position.
That's pretty crucial as well, actually, because I think they're going for the same kind of thing again. A Discord Orb onto Agilities, you can see it's placed at the moment. And then Kevster's got his Pulse Bomb up. So that combo That could be crucial for the Gladiators to be able to constantly apply more pressure and push back agilities. He's got to be a little bit scared of that, and you got to give respect as well to Birdring. The res is going to be able to come out, but space there to deny it. He kills Cruz, doesn't quite deny the res, but punishes the Mercy for it.
That's so smart. That's so smart. Just using the self-destruct. They knew that the res was going to come out because it was the only way they won that fight. Space answers immediately with the self-destruct, denies it completely. You either stick it or you don't, because at the end of the day, Gipster, my God. Here I am talking about the Mercy Resurrects when he's just popping off like this on high ping, nevertheless,
200
as well.
ping. How does he do this?
Yeah, one clipping fools. I mean, it's just unbelievable. This kind of performance is what you need to see in the playoffs coming out from these teams. This is what we wanted to see all season long from the Gladiators. We're finally getting it now just when it matters most. An attempt now from the Toronto Defiant to try and move in here. Discord Orb still placed now onto Zeke with that Nano Boost. He's going to get demolished from it. That's so smart from Shaz. Apply the Discord, use the Nano, or uses the Transcendent, still being turned though. Resurrect coming out now, so Birdring back in this fight. Does feel like the Gladiators have an opportunity to try and win this one out, but Cruz pulls out the blaster and takes out Birdring from behind. I still don't think they're going to be able to take this one. The players are just straggling in at this point. The barrage comes through. 2 kills now. Logic with the help of the rest of his team, and they have turned this. I spoke too soon. Caster cursing them in the moment.
That was great. And, you know, I think the most crucial moment of that as well is that Kariv was being pressured by both of the tanks. Both OG and Space were trying to kill that Ana. And Kariv got a sleep onto OG, then he bionated himself, and Cruz was healing him up the entire time, and they kept Kariv alive and just set up an opportunity for Zik to go for that barrage. Such great peel from the Toronto Defiant, and they stay alive here. 46 seconds left, and even though the Gladiators have been very impressive on their attack, it's been slow, Bren. It has been very slow.
Toronto going to be looking for this last team fight to win it big.
Do they go for the Pulse Bomb again?
Right here.
Do they go for the Pulse Bomb here, Brent? The Discord or Pulse Bomb play onto agilities. That could be huge.
Positioning is there. OG has the Primal. Working his way now. He's going to pop it off just to see if he can survive into this fight. Meanwhile, a Widowmaker 1v1 taking place between these two players. The shot's missing. Logixo gets the big health pack. He has the health advantage as this is kicking off. Now the infra side. Meanwhile, the team fight kicks off and Cruz will be meeting his Maker Pulse Bomb, meeting him into it and cleaving through the enemy team here. As this was going on, Birdring ended up winning that Widowmaker 1v1, and the overtime will start to burn. The Gladiators have an opportunity, and it is going to be theirs, as Birdring cleans up once more. 4 kills in total for him. The savior and his team's need. Oh my God, what a performance.
You would not be able to tell that this guy is ill whatsoever. Logix gets the better end of him there, with the aid of Cruz. But at the same time, Birdring just stepped up exactly when it mattered. He was able to get the 1v1 kill over Logix, which is enormous, right? Because if Logix is just left alive in your backlines, changes the entire tide of that fight. Yeah. And then he gets all of the cleanup kills necessary for his team to keep this time bank going into point C. It's still low though, Brent. 55 seconds left. The Defiant with the high ground control, with ults to play with.
Really quite astounding. Logix uses the infra side here, and the self-destruct from Space again, leading it in, seeing if they can create any space to try and capitalize off to dive in. Shaz will be the one to go down though, and I don't think that is going to be getting rezzed up anytime soon. Birdring falling as well. 30 seconds remaining. Gladiators should just be backing off here. He needs to be resetting. Space gets debacked. Oh, that's a brutal one.
That's incredibly rough.
No way.
Big Goose as well. There's only 20 seconds left, and Big Goose, he's on a 10-second respawn timer. This is going to be down to the wire here. I don't see how the Gladiators win this one. The Defiant have all the position, all of the ults, and the time pressure.
Kevson's going to be able to touch this. I was convinced that nobody was going to be there, but 2 seconds remaining. Double dashing in is going to be able to get that overtime going. Transcendence from Shaz to lead it in, but the positioning is awful from the Gladiators, and the barrage from Zeke from behind. Shaz goes down pretty early on. It's going to be all on Birdring really to try and turn this one around, but he goes down to the Bionate of Kariv. So many picks going their way. The Toronto Defiant inches away from victory. So close from continuing this series now. Only a few players remaining. OG desperately trying to cling on to whatever he can with the Primal Rage, but he is melted in an instant. And this series, Josh, will be going the distance. The Toronto Defiant are going to be getting their win and taking it to map 5.
They're not ready to give up yet, Bren. The Toronto Defiant have had that taste of victory earlier on in the season. In the Summer Showdown, they made the semifinals. They got 3rd or 4th place in North America. They're ranked 9 coming into our 2020 playoffs, and they want to go further than that. A win over the Gladiators here today would be monumental. They have a very specific style. Agilities has been playing the Roadhog this entire match, and they have found the maps to be able to make it work. It will be the Gladiators pick, though, as we head into this final decisive map. But my God, this series has delivered. It's been so entertaining, and the clash of styles is beautiful to watch. I mean, personally, if you ask me, Bren, I would say that maybe the Gladiators played the better Overwatch in Dorado, but they were just too slow. They countered what the Defiant were doing, but it took too much time, and the Defiant just wore them down and wore them down. And then, just when it mattered, they win it all.
Beaten down by the clock in the end, and it's a brutal loss for the Gladiators here, but it does mean we are going to be seeing this map 5 scenario play out. Both of these teams, ladies and gentlemen, let me just set the stakes, are playing for their 2020 season here and now. So don't go anywhere. You know you don't want to miss it. It's all coming down to this map 5 after the break.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
All come down to this. For some of these players, this will be the most important series they've played all season long. That's it. The culmination of 2020 is all going to come down to this knockout game here between the Toronto Defiant and the Los Angeles Gladiators. What a way to finish off this series here. And our first series of the day, might I remind you, we've got 2 more matches coming up after this.
Yeah.
With the stakes just like this between various teams. But in the here and now, this has been such a beautiful clash of styles.
It really has, and it has been back and forth between the Defiant and the Gladiators as well. It's very difficult to predict who's going to be able to take a map. Both teams have a read on what the opponent is going to run, and yet Sometimes the Gladiators were able to counter it, sometimes the other way. We are going to see a change, though. You can see the substitution here. Numlocked in instead of Agilities. So they are probably not going to be playing that Roadhog anymore. They're going for a more conventional look as we head into our map 5. The control map picked by the Gladiators, which is going to be Lijiang. So they are throwing something different into the mix. Agilities on the Hog got them this entire way here, and now they're changing it up. It's either genius or it's gonna look like craziness. Craziness? It's either genius or insanity. Crazy, that's what I was going for.
Sure, and this is Agility's statistics so far this match. You can see 53% hook accuracy. Nothing to set that up, no halts to set that up. This is purely just his own raw mechanical abilities, and he has delivered so much this series long. And now they've swapped him out for the final map. Will this come to bite them? Well, that's what we're here to find out. But Numlocked is going to be stepping in, which is now kind of thrown a wrench into things, because the Gladiators have been so good at adapting their compositions because they know that Agilities is going to be playing the Roadhog. But maybe, has Seb Barton been playing the Roadhog? Has he been practicing it? Is this just going to be throwing them for a loop in the final moments of this series? I mean, there's so many aspects that come into this right now. You can't even imagine what's going through these players' minds.
Yeah, and the coaches as well, right? DPay for the Gladiators, trying to prep against what the Toronto Defiant are throwing at them in this final map. They take them to Lijiang, presumably expecting that they're going to be seeing Roadhog again. Instead, Numlocked in. Lijiang Tower has a lot of different styles, depending on which round you're on. Control Center is very close quarters, very claustrophobic, and little opportunity for Pharah to be played. We did see Houston play it. I doubt we'll see the Toronto Defiant play it. The other maps, though, are pretty wide open. They're great for the Pharah. They're pretty good for the Roadhog kind of comps as well. So we could see multiple different looks. We could see almost a microcosm of this entire series played out in our final map. There will be a team sent home from the 2020 playoffs on this final map. On Lijiang Tower, it will decide the fates of either the Toronto Defiant or the Los Angeles Gladiators.
You can see Cruz getting some water as he steps into frame. If you're wondering why we haven't stepped into the match just yet, but there he is. He returns, hydrated, ready to go. I want to see this match. I want to see top performance from you, Cruz. UK Mafia 2020, you already know. We're diving into it now. It's going to be Lijiang Tower. Plenty of opportunities for these players to flex over various positions, various roles. And it is an interesting risk that the Defiant have taken, putting Numlocked in. And a reminder as well for everybody who's at home, this is probably going to be Numlocked's most important match of maybe his entire career, at least in the Overwatch League, as it's happened.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean,
a guy who...
I mean, you could argue that some of his contenders games might have been more important to just get him into OWL in the first place.
Sure.
But this is definitely the highest stakes match he's ever been in. The same for Zik as well, by the way. I mean, he's never been in a position like this either. A rookie that came into the league this year.
The pressure that's on these players' shoulders to be subbed in the deciding map for your entire team series. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of trust that's being placed into you. So this is going to be one of the biggest matches, if not the biggest match that he's ever played, and he's going to be going up against the Gladiators, seasoned vets. We'll see what they can do now as the players, the teams are rolling out. Map 5, Lijiang Tower, all comes down to this. And immediately you can see these teams matching each other toe-to-toe. OG with the advantage early on as he claims the first pick as he's going down. No more hacks, no more building up that EMP. It's a pretty significant disadvantage here for the Toronto Defiant early on, not finding the openings they were looking for still. Haven't lost any players, and they have built up pretty quick coalescence on both sides here. Shaz really up to be using this one here. The hack's coming through, but kills, far too potent. The coalescences are traded out once more, but it seems like the Gladiators are in control.
Definitely. The hacks coming out from Kevstar are perfect. Hack onto Nevix to be able to demech him. A hack onto Cruz to be able to find that kill as well. And even though Karib invests his coalescence, it's responded immediately by Shaz. That was almost a textbook way of being able to play this Sombra Reaper. And the EMP comes out to establish dominant control over Lijiang Tower, at least at the beginning here on Night Market for the Gladiators. They're going to start this capture point rolling upwards.
Nice early team fight win for them. And getting this ball rolling is so important. Now, I will say, not the worst scenario in the world for Toronto Defiant when you consider that the point wasn't capped for some time, and you know, you ended up getting the EMP out pretty early. Still, looking at the ultimates that the Gladiators have, they have plenty to work with now.
Salvary is huge here as well for BQs. He's going to be trying to play
nice hack.
Passive roll.
Birdring into the backline, but he gets hacked up, cancelled out of it, and now turned around. Finding these pickoffs for the rest of their team. A great opening here. The Defiant capitalizing immediately, taking positioning onto the point. They're going to flip it over in their favor. And a late contestation comes out now from the Gladiators. Death Blossom from Logic Soundbarrier to lead them in, but it's going to be a better one from the Gladiators. A nice health point advantage, leading it in with the Coalescence. The self-destruct might be the difference maker, but the players hide. Expertly round the corner, dodging, juking out of the wave, and Kevster now utilizing the EMP, unleashing it onto the battlefield. Numlocked will be the first casualty from that. It's going to be even trades across the board. Anyone's game still, but a positioning advantage all goes to Toronto. They're still in control at this point, and they don't seem to be any closer to being dethroned away from it.
That's so unfortunate that the Gladiators weren't able to capitalize on the EMP. Logic's just stayed in position the entire time. He isn't affected by being hacked, but what is that? Big Goose with the spam kills Karib. So no heals available for the Defiant. This should be an easy flip for the Gladiators.
An egregious mistake because it's cost them big time. Oh, you've lost your Moira player. It's going to be a lack of heals coming through. You're not building the Coalescence. A bit nasty from them, but it will mean that the Gladiators get their time in the sun as they're going to flip this point back over now, 50% and counting. So even between these two teams, and it is the Gladiators with that big ultimate advantage.
Yeah, the Gladiators are 50% ahead of their Coalescence as well, because Karib went down in that fight. Ahead in the EMP too, they could go for an aggressive play here with Kevster. That's exactly what they go for.
Yeah, the EMP comes out, Numlocked cannot do anything, can't even stand up to it. The shields get evaporated. With the Coalescence just to seal the deal here, they're going to be spraying them down. A nice aggressive forward approach here, but they can't get too aggressive, can't get caught out of position. 80% and counting. The Gladiators want to make this the final fight, but the Toronto Defiant might have other things to say about that with the amount of ultimates they're working with. 6 online.
Yeah, 6 online and no great response for the Gladiators here as well. They might just invest a couple of ults to try and draw as many out of the Defiant as possible, but this EMP should be huge. The flank from Birdring. He is close to that Death Blossom. They got shut down last time, but he might be able to make magic again here.
Soundbarrier comes out a little bit late, but look at this. The Primal Rage from OG hacked up, booped up the side of the map. What a play from Cruz. Finding it onto OG, and now Logic still in the fight. Only a couple of players remaining. Trying to turn this one around, but it is the Defiant who have complete and utter dominance. A great grasp on this point as they reflip it back over once more. The Gladiators did invest a lot of ultimates into that. The Soundbarrier, the Primal Rage, but still not over yet. They have ample opportunity now to push back in here.
Those ults were necessary to draw out the ults from the Toronto Defiant though as well. So I don't hate that move. I just wish that Kevster had been able to generate more of his EMP. They would love to have it right available now, but he's already got it. He just takes the front lines, takes a little bit of defense matrix from space, and he's built it up.
EMP roars through. Self-destruct preemptively comes through as well as Nevix finds one, but the Gladiators. 3 early picks means that this might just be it. A couple of players able to just stall out this point as the overtime will start to burn, but can anybody else touch this one? It doesn't look like that will be the case. The Gladiators walking away with round number 1 here in this map 5 scenario. Getting closer and closer to moving forward here in the playoffs.
What a tight first round though. Mirror comms from either team. You would give the edge, honestly, to the Gladiators in any kind of mirror. OG is considered to be a better Winston. Kevster's been fantastic when it comes to the heroes that he's had to play, and he's looked pretty potent on the Sombra so far in this match. But at the same time, the Defiant were with them every step of the way. At the end of the day, it came down to 10%. That was basically just the first fight gave the Gladiators that advantage. Let's see what they end up running here as well. The Defiant look like they want to run a rush comp with the Junkrat. We've seen so much of this towards the end of this season. But the Gladiators are running something totally different. Just the Sombra Reaper, but this time with a ball.
Lucio Zen.
On OG.
The Lucio Zen for the speed boost and the Discord Orb. What a wacky composition from the Gladiators here. Let's see how this works out for them here, because look, they're just going to have this sphere of death that's currently being occupied by the Toronto Defiant. Anyone who walks within their sort of range, probably going to be beating their makers. Rolling through, OG in a bit of trouble here. Getting battered up, but all this damage and no kills means that Kariv is a very happy man. Already 60% to the Coalescence. Can he get any further?
Look how fast Numlock's shield goes down. Look at Numlock's shield, it just gets shredded. That's Shaz in the backlines as well, just putting out so much damage there, but so is Zik.
And the experimental comp doesn't quite pay off for now. Zik does go down to Bird Ring, but ultimately this point is in control of Toronto and will not be changing hands too often.
I mean, it might change hands once this EMP gets online. There really isn't that much of an answer from the Toronto Defiant. Cruz is still a long way away from his sound barrier, which would be a good counter. Look at OG just in the back here. Yeah. He's looking to disrupt and displace them. If Zik gets his tire, that could be a great counter to the EMP. If he can get tire and dodge getting hacked, that could be perfect.
It's a hard ask. He's going to try and build it up now. And because the Gladiators playing so split currently, he's not connecting onto any targets. EMP unleashed. The Gladiators looking to try and capitalize. They've got a couple of players hacked up, and they do just that. 2 players going to be going down, and it's the most important ones. The tanks no longer going to be having that presence for the Toronto Defiant to try and turn this one. The tire comes through anyway. They want to turn this one. They feel confident in doing so. The tire's not going to get the kill. OG too tanky with the adaptive shields. Rolling forwards, they're still in control of this, and the teleporter comes through. Logic's with the shield, splitting it up the middle, mitigating so much damage despite the fact that the tanks went down.
How did Logix get 2 kills in the middle of that team fight? How did they find an opportunity to turn it around? How are the Gladiators not in control right now? What an insane opportunity found there from the Toronto Defiant. Great shot call.
Oh. Numlock caught out of position. The barrier might just save him. Still, this fight continues. You can see them rolling it forward, rolling it down. The mines just stopping them in their tracks. Numlock going down, though. The Death Blossom from on high. Bird Ring, you gotta be kidding me. 5 kills, and that is going to be flipping it now. Exactly what the Gladiators needed.
They weren't even sure they could field this guy at the beginning of today, but Birdring battled through the illnesses that he was feeling, warmed up straight into the game in the second map, and he's been lights out ever since.
Nevix with this grab. The Gladiators need to be playing around this. Space wants to be trying to eat this. They know it's coming, and it's the EMP into the pile driver combo. Logic's in the backline though, TP'd and avoided it, tried to turn it around. Space using that self-destruct, which means there could be a free grab here. Space goes down. So many players fallen right now. The Defiant are currently in control. Point still in control for the Gladiators, but it's being edged out ever so slightly. The Coalescence from Shaz giving his team the heals necessary to try and turn this one, as Kevster moved over to the Doomfish just to try and stall it.
Logix is a monster. He did the same thing in the previous fights when he was on Symmetra, where he takes an engagement where EMP is used, and they should lose. The Defiant should lose, but Logix finds 2 kills, and he did the same there again. This time he couldn't quite save the team fight, but he's still got the picks, and Kevster's going to have his work cut out here. Just takes way too much damage.
On a beautiful grab from Nevix. Space unable to eat it, gonna get demeched in the process as well. Lost in this fight. The mines are still around the sides of the point here. You can see they're just trying to avoid them. OG trying to knock them into it, but currently the damage being pumped into them by Logix. These Hellfire shotguns doing a lot of damage. Numlock trying to react in time, lays down the Year of Shadow, but unable to get any players on the deck. It's far too mobile from the Gladiators. Still another pile driver into the adaptive shields, gives them enough health to try and turn this one around. Now surely the Gladiators aren't going to be capable of doing this. Surely this is where they're going to be ending this. The Defiant, 99%, the overtime starting to burn here. The Defiant desperately holding on. They need this map win, they need this round win for their tournament life to be on the line still. Nevix burning down, Kevster taking it out of the fight. Soundfire coming in a little bit later though. Big Goose wants to turn this one for the rest of his team. You can still see the players of the Gladiators still alive here. Space kills Zeke, but Kareem bounces back again onto OG. Another graph built up. Nevix waiting for the right opportunity to try and unleash it, and Space being demeched. Well, that might just be the go button. He doesn't even need it. The Toronto Defiant taking the round, keeping themselves in this season, keeping themselves in the tournament. This game could not have gone further.
It couldn't get any closer. The Defiant have really stepped up. I don't think there have been large moments where the Gladiators have made horrific mistakes. That has been an issue that has plagued their entire season in 2020. Just the Gladiators find opportunities and they throw it away. That hasn't happened here today. Look at this situation. Oh, Kevster so close to touching the point. Space so close as well. They were going to win the fight though either way. Defiant had established that presence on the point. But I have been loving this series though, Brent, because we have gone just blow for blow until the very final round, and I feel like both of these teams are playing maybe some of their best Overwatch they've played all season long.
Playoffs is where the play gets elevated to new heights. Teams are clashing. One of them for potentially the last time this year. Numlock just going to get hacked up and backed out away to Leap come through, and it is this clashing of compositions here. Both teams running mirror comps in the end, trying to get the better edge, trying to win out over the others, trying to get a pick off or two. You can see the way they're working around early Coalescence, and OG out of position. Caught out, the Coalescence traded out. EMP now onto 6 members of the Defiant. Could be turnable for the Gladiators, and they do just that. The tail end of that Coalescence gets so much done because of that EMP. Kevster building it up just in time. Point was flipped over for the Toronto as they got the early capture, but the Gladiators are going to be in control for now.
The rookie player for the Gladiators on a team full of vets, he saves them there because OG, he had pushed forwards thinking that Shaz had his Coalescence up at the same time as Karif. He was expecting to be saved by that call, but it just came through too slowly. Thankfully, Kevster had built up to his EMP, and now he has 40% again, but Zik has it available. Didn't use it in the previous fight. He was only on 95% when he died.
Might opt for the solo EMP, and he does just that, tries to catch it, but the sound barrier from Big Goose, it's going to connect and it's going to keep his team still in it, negating out the EMP. Gladiators with 2 picks. It does not seem like the Defiant are going to be able to hold on to this one for any longer. The Primal Rage from Numlocked is not going to be able to do much other than get him out of the fight scot-free, but Gladiators still holding on now, approaching that 50% mark. A real turning point so far in this round.
Yeah, this could be huge as well because Kevster has built up to another EMP. He is so fast with these. So an EMP Coalescence combo would just wipe the Toronto Defiant right now. Yeah. Sure, they have Karivs, but I don't think they would be able to hold up to it, not with all of their abilities taken away.
61% and counting. The longer this team fight goes, the worse it might be. The EMP unleashed. The Coalescence to try and save them, but it's not going to be enough. Karif cannot keep his team alive during the EMP. It's going to be another team fight win.
Shaz saved his Coalescence. You almost always see the support try and use something, whether it's EMP and Bionade or EMP and Coalescence. Oh, Kevster is camping the Translocator here.
He's gonna
destroy it now, but did anyone find him? No, just putting a bit of disruption in there. Final
cycling
fight.
of ults here, yeah. Final fight territory for the Gladiators. They've got to try and turn up, and look at this! Gladiators finding the opening pick, Birdering rolling through them with the Death Blossom, 2 kills! And that should do it, ladies and gentlemen. The Los Angeles Gladiators. The Defiant made it hard for them, but they will be victorious. GG's in the chat, and they will move forward in the tournament. The Toronto Defiant going to be going home. This will be where their 2020 season ends. You can see how elated the members of the Gladiators are. My word, what a close series. Could have gone either way in many moments.
Heartbreak for the Defiant to be able to take it to that final round. You can see what it means to them as well. Logic's with his head in his hands. But at the end of the day, I think the players will be able to look back on that match and say they gave it their all. They really pushed the Gladiators. Yeah. They were massive underdogs coming into this series. Maybe it doesn't feel like it when they're the number 9 seed playing against the number 6. Those numbers are fairly close, but in terms of their performance throughout the entire season, the Gladiators were big favorites coming into this match, and it came down to 1 round.
The fact that the Gladiators ended up picking the Toronto Defiant as their opponents should dictate where they thought they stood, you know, toe-to-toe against them. I don't think the Gladiators were expecting the Toronto Defiant to put up the fight that they did. Going all the way to distance there, map 5 into the final round. What an unbelievable performance. And in terms of our player of the match, I mean, we've got to give it to one player, and one player only on the Gladiators. It has to be Birdring for stepping up in his team's moment, his team's time of need. This guy was under the weather. He was feeling sick. He wasn't supposed to play today, despite the fact that he's been practicing with them. He was the one who turned up. He decided, you know what? No, my team needs me. I'm going to play. Subbed in after map 1, made it work in the end, and an absolutely unbelievable performance in many moments of this map right here.
Yeah, he had some moments where he was performing at his best level, where you see Birdring in the playoffs and he's just dominating his opponents. He had many of those situations, both on the Reaper and on the Widowmaker. I think I saw on the player cams there that they actually had to carry him off. Like, I think they were helping him away from his PC at the end. So that's, I mean, you know, the guy just went above and beyond today. I hope he feels better. I hope that he's able to play at 100% moving on further throughout these playoffs. But my God, what a performance. I mean, over 10 final blows per 10 minutes on Reaper is pretty enormous. The Gladiators looked well practiced today. They had multiple different looks. Yes, the Defiant pushed them really hard. And yeah, it wasn't a dominant win by any means, but they managed to do it. They are through to the double elimination portion of the playoffs, and Birdring is a big reason why.
Unreal performance. Birdring was carried off by his teammates. They ended up giving him water at the tail end of that and carried him away from his PC. This isn't
that's just
hyperbole.
Crazy.
This isn't hyperbole. The guy probably should be resting up right now, but at the end of the day, this is a job where you just don't get the luxury of a sick day. When it comes to playoffs, it's such unfortunate timing, but he stepped up to the plate. He did the job that his team needed him to do.
Respect.
I mean, yeah, an unreal performance from Birdring. And as well as this guy as well, there was always these storylines going around about him as a player, about how he would never really, turn up at the playoffs time around it, or he was generally just a playoffs player.
Lacking the motivation.
Or lacking the motivation. I mean, this just erodes all of that. You've got to give this guy so much respect for stepping up when his team needed him to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, last season, when it came to the playoffs, Birdring played a couple of games and then he got subbed out. And there was a lot of confusion about that. You know, people on Twitter were talking from Cloud9, from the London Spitfire themselves, tweeting about, making vague allusions to Birdring being a bit of an issue. Oh, he has not been an issue on the Gladiators in 2020. Let me tell you that. He has been one of their biggest performers all season long, and he's ramped it up to spectacular levels as we have got closer and closer to the playoffs. He's historically been a big game player, and he's turned up in this big game.
What a player, honestly. What an absolutely astonishing player. And coming up next, of course, we've got even more matches. That was just number 1 of the day. We've got, I believe, 2 more coming up after this one. But first, it's going to be the Boston Uprising versus the Atlanta Reign. Will the Boston Uprising continue to defy expectations? Now, the fact that Boston, our 13th seed coming into this, were not first picked in this tournament would lead me to believe that they're actually doing pretty well in scrims, and some teams are actually respecting them a decent amount as well. This is a match that, we're going to find out. Are Boston going to be able to continue their miracle run? Now, I saw in the bracket makers, in the leaderboards, there was one bracket that just had Boston going all the way into the grand finals. I mean, I can respect the commitment. That's a true blue Boston fan right there. But yeah, we'll see if they manage to do it in the series coming up.